right, we are ready to get started. Today is Tuesday, September 24th, 2024, and it is the City Council's work session. I'm calling this meeting to order and giving notice that the City Council may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for discussion and consultation with the city's attorneys for legal advice on any item listed on the following agenda. Can we have roll call?
Mayor Daggett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Aslan.
Present.
Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Harris. I see her online. Councilmember House.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Here.
Councilmember Sweet.
Here. Thank you. Councilmember Matthews, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand if you're able.
The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Thank you, Mayor. The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by Native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is open call to the public. This happens twice on every agenda, once at the beginning and another at the end. You have 3 minutes, and the timer is right here below me. And this is for any item that is not already listed on the agenda. First up, we have Peggy Sheldon Skurlock and Rebecca Durenberger.
Hello, Mayor and council members and city staff. Peggy Sheldon Skurlock here, resident of Flagstaff. Rebecca Durenberger, also resident. And we're here to acknowledge International Peace Day, which just occurred on September 21st. I know many of you have been supportive and assisted us with proclamations to honor and acknowledge that. We had a community ceremony at Heritage Square at the Peace Pole, which was wonderful, and we wanted to share a sand ceremony that we created with the community that attended, and I'll let Rebecca present that.
Okay, each of the colors of this ceremony represents a different word of peace. It represents peace, and we found this in lots of different traditions. So there are peace that's represented by our indigenous people, people from around the world, and then a lot of the terms used here were simply universal for all peoples. So the whole idea is to help us to remember to make peace with one another. And we'd like to present this to you with an explanation of what the colors represent.
So the fuchsia hot pink is for compassion, caring, nurturing. The brown is reliability and comfort. The dark blue, serenity, harmony. Orange is balance, warmth, kinship, happiness. Purple, enlightenment and transformation. White, humility, open-mindedness, sharing. Light blue, spirituality, tranquility. Light brown, quiet, calm, relaxing. Black is for health, wisdom, trust, and strength. Red for respect, energy, happiness, and beauty. Green for rebirth, resilience, harmony, endurance. And yellow for hope, friendship, happiness. And we'd like to let you have this here in City Hall chambers, use as you would like. Perhaps you have school children or other groups that you would want to take this with you and present and share. And one thing that we always ask, and it is inscribed on the peace pole, is who would you make peace with? And we address that and invite each of you individually as well as leaders here in our community. Yes, we'll leave this here for you.
Could you actually leave it with Shannon right here?
And I want to thank each of you for all of your participation in the past years. 2014 was the first year we celebrated International Day of Peace here, and I appreciate all the support that all of you have given us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Neiman.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Jenny Neiman, Climate Action Section Director. I am pleased to share a quick update on the Northern Arizona Solar Co-op, which we're really proud launched its 4th round today. This is the 4th time the city has partnered with Solar United Neighbors, Coconino County, and the city of city of Sedona to increase solar across Northern Arizona. This group collaborative effort offers homeowners and small businesses free solar education and the ability to work together to receive discounted solar pricing for their installations, as well as battery storage and electric vehicle charging. I know some of you are very familiar with this program, and we appreciate those of you that have participated in the past by getting solar yourselves or helping to spread the word. Thank you. Over the past 3 rounds of the Northern Arizona Solar Co-op, 131 residents in Flagstaff installed solar. This generates 982 kilowatts of clean energy in our community, and most importantly, results in a combined energy savings of more than $4.5 million over the life of the solar systems. One of the best parts of the co-op is our opportunity to share information on solar and talk with our neighbors about potentially installing solar. To that end, we're hosting a Solar 101 workshop on Wednesday, October 16th from 6 to 7 p.m. This will be virtual. And then we're having an in-person Solar 101 event on October 30th at Mother Road Brewing from 6 to 7 p.m. I will follow up with information about both of these events. These events will discuss the financing, the technology, the economics, and other aspects of going solar, and folks will have a chance to learn how a solar co-op can work and learn from folks who have participated in one before. Our goal is to recruit 100 members to participate in this round. Those interested can visit solarunitedneighbors.org/northernaz to learn more. Again, that's solarunitedneighbors.org/northernaz. The deadline to sign up for the co-op is January 25th, 2025, so you'll see us back here again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Mario Mastro Simone. Did I come close?
Mastro Simone.
Master Simone.
Okay, Mayor and City Council, I've been out of town for a couple years and I returned to my house. I live up on Hospital Hill, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, and I called code enforcement and had them come out, and they told me my best course is here. I live up on Hospital Hill, and there's a gentleman in our neighborhood who owns 27 Airbnbs. He has taken single-family homes and turned them into 3 and 4 units per lot. Our neighborhood is single-family residential. He's got commercial signs designating each of the cottages, and they said that there's nothing that they can do that's within city ordinances. I know for a fact that single-family residential is single-family residential. If I were to open up a 75-room motel in a neighborhood, I would need to be in a commercial area. He's got 27 Airbnb units. It's a commercial venture. He's running it as a corporation, And on my street, there are actually only 3 residents. The rest of it is all Airbnbs, and it's all owned by this one person. I don't know why the city of Flagstaff complains about the price of housing when they're allowing this to go on. This is the main reason that the housing is so expensive in Flagstaff. All of these Airbnbs come in, they suck up the entire neighborhood. Nobody has any place to live, the cost goes up. This guy decides to sell them, it's gonna flood the market and everybody's prices are gonna go down. Other cities in Arizona have taken action where they've limited the number of Airbnb licenses. I think Sedona did something where they limited the numbers. This is what I've heard. But now that the state of Arizona has lifted the restrictions that they had, we need to do something in our community to make it so that we're not putting Motel 6s in the neighborhood. And to me, there's no difference between opening a hotel and having to have a commercial and have it licensed and having 27 units in one neighborhood with 3 and 4 units on each property in a single family residence. Airbnb was designed where you rent out a casita or a room in your house, not turn it into a gigantic corporation where you're sucking up an entire neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would, since council cannot have back and forth during open call to the public, I would just ask you to put that in an email to council and we can respond to you that way. All right, next up we have Sarah Sweeney.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. My name is Sarah Sweeney, otherwise known as Little Evil, and I am an athletic director, coach, and skating member of High Altitude Roller Derby, a local roller derby league that has proudly been a part of this community since 2012. When I mention roller derby, images of wild-haired women in tights knocking each other over the rails on a bank track might come to mind. But modern roller derby is a regulated sport that requires athleticism and endurance and is open to all. In a world where many sports have historically been male-dominated, roller derby is an exception. Our sport is one of the few with inclusive regulations offering space for transgender women, intersex people, and gender-expansive individuals. We embrace everyone for who they are, and that's what makes our community so powerful. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the words that roller derby changed or saved my life. I am living proof of the fact that roller derby is more than just a sport. It's a welcoming, inclusive place where people come from all corners of life and come together, less to compete, but more to find belonging, strength, and connection. Our skaters are doctors, scientists, real estate agents, wildland firefighters, middle school teachers, parents, and more during the day. But when they put away their lab coats and their clipboards and their wildland fire boots, they come together as fierce athletes who support one another on and off the track. I cannot describe for you the power and the strength that I have found in my teammates and through them in myself. However, right now, our ability to continue growing and thriving as a league is at risk. We recently lost one of our practice spaces at Flagstaff Junior Academy, and now we share space at Mount Ellen Middle School with many other Flagstaff sports groups. With increasing demand for these facilities, our practice time is at risk. This impacts our league at every level, from our brand new fresh meat, who are just starting to discover the magic of the sport, to our A-level travel team working to maintain and improve our international competitive rankings. Flagstaff needs a multi-purpose indoor sports complex, a place that can house a roller derby flat track along with other activities like pickleball and volleyball and indoor soccer. In a city where inclement weather can limit outdoor activities, an indoor facility would allow our community's multiple sports groups to be active year-round. We're asking for your support. Please consider adding the development of such a complex to your future agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving down to item number 5, review of draft agenda for the October 1st, 2024 City Council meeting. Council, are there any questions or concerns about this agenda? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item number 6, City Manager Report.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll be brief on the report and would invite you to read through the updates involving several divisions. We will be coming back to you in the near future to talk about the Beulah University Capital Project and the John Wesley Powell project. So you have some updates from Community Development, Water Services, Public Works. Thank you all for your contributions. Also from the Police Department and Fire Department. After this report, we'll ask for some updates from our Housing, Human Resources, and Sustainability divisions. Just short updates for Council's benefit and for that of the community. We have a nice update from our City Attorney's Office regarding retirement of Colleen Calhoun and Sterling. I'm wondering if I could lean on you to offer any comments you might want to share.
Absolutely, Mayor and Council, I'm honored today to speak to you about one of our employees who recently retired. I'm going to see if I can share the screen quickly here to make sure you can see that. If you can hold on just one second, thank you. I believe that's coming up now. Colleen was no newcomer to the legal profession. In March of '87, she started her career working for the Honorable Anthony Hallis in the Industrial Commission as a legal assistant. And Judge Hallis appreciated her work so much that he made sure she came with him as part of his team when he left the bench and entered private practice. She enjoyed the work, but she loved Flagstaff, so she returned 10 years later in 1997. Over the next 20 years, Colleen worked in various areas of the legal world and other work, including Coconino County Attorney's Office as a legal assistant and the AG's office as a legal secretary. She joined our team in 2017 as a specialist. Over the last 7 years here with Team Flagstaff, she shined. She earned 3 different awards. In 21, she received the Oak Award for Accountability in the City Managers Awards. She also received the Arizona Prosecuting Attorneys Advisory Council, or APAC, the Administrative Professional of the Year Award. And in addition, right before leaving this year, she earned the APAC Professional Lifetime Achievement Award. Colleen was a valuable asset. She retired in early September to spend more time with family in Texas, where she now lives. In fact, she's in the process of moving right now. But she has still joined this meeting with us via Teams today. She has a very positive attitude. Her work has been vital, and she was a valued member of our team. We wish Colleen luck in everything she does with her family in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sterling. That was nice. Moving on, Mayor, Council, just some updates. We had a wonderful community breakfast with NAU. Great presentation. I don't want to belabor what happened with our airport exercise. I think there will be an update or a debrief from that. I think I'll note, and this occurred on September 9th, it was a simulated airport emergency. It was well attended and very well orchestrated, so stay tuned for the outcomes of that exercise. I have some photos in the report to share on that. Want to thank the many emergency responders who participated in the ceremony here at City Hall on September 11th, honoring the 9/11 attack, the horrific attack that occurred 23 years ago. Thank you for that ceremony. It was very moving. We had a nice candidate forum in this venue on September 12th. Thanks to all who helped put that forum together to inform our new candidates for City Council of the many divisions in the city and their functions, and putting some names to, or faces to names, and just having a nice introduction. It was very good. Also, recently had a nice tour of the Downtown Connection Center project well underway. On that same day, it was a busy day, we also had a very nice Hogan blessing out at the high school. Many thanks to Rose Tohi and the many people involved in that wonderful event, September 18th. And we had a good meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers on September 17th, talking, of course, about the Rio de Flag Flood Control Project. There's some updates in my report on that. Council, I would like to revisit something that we presented to you 2 weeks ago during the work session on the Mead Lane flooding. We had a nice presentation. It's going to be exactly the same today. We just want to make sure that the neighborhood there was well informed of this discussion, and so I'm going to ask in just a second to have Ed Schenk, who's making his way to the podium, thank you, Ed, to repeat what you offered up a couple of weeks ago, and if we do have members of that neighborhood present, they certainly could have opportunity to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. So Ed Schenk, Stormwater Section Director here at City of Flagstaff. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. This will be a refresher for many of you, but for many of the residents here behind me, this will probably be some new material. So talking about Mead Lane, the Drainage Improvement Project was identified as an issue in the 2019 Coconino Estates Capital Improvement Projects. This was a streets project, and then confirmed again in 2022 during our pipeline fire modeling. The drainage currently consists of two 12-inch pipes, one on the north side of the street and one on the south side, which are very insufficient for the regular flows that we see that reach Mead Lane, which is mostly a north to south flow off of Talkington and Lynn onto Mead before it continues through the rest of Coconino Estates. Our proposed solution is a 42-inch pipe that expands to a 48-inch pipe with new catch basins, new drainage basins or drains within the curb and gutter that extend from Highway 180 to the Rio de Flag. The approximate cost, the engineer's opinion of probable cost, is $863,000 for the drainage improvements and $1.2 million for the drainage and utility reconstruction. So this would be the reconstruction of the sewer line as well underneath, as well as a large portion of that road. To give you a map, this is a map of Mead Lane starting again on the east side at Highway 180, extending out to the Rio de Flag here. It's a little hard to see, it's a little busy, if you will. But the current conditions here, we have those two 12-inch pipes, like I mentioned, one on the north side, one on the south side. Fairly flat, that extend to the Rio. They have a very low capacity, about 2 cubic feet per second per pipe, so roughly 4 to 5 cubic feet per second total. This color that you see here, that is the predicted depth of flooding for a 100-year event. So the yellow is over a foot. The blue is slightly less than that. So as you can see, it is a ponding condition. So it ponds on Mead, and then currently it continues down into the rest of Coconino Estates. So there is a natural levee along the Rio, which does not allow the water to go down the street and connect with the Rio de Flag. So that is our condition right now. That's the condition we are working to improve. And this is that proposed drainage improvement that would meet that need. So again, starting as a 42-inch with 24-inch lateral pipes coming from these new drains, and then conveying to a 48-inch pipe. So these are very large pipes connecting to the Rio de Flag. So the new conveyance would be approximately 134 cubic feet per second, so obviously quite a bit larger than 5. And this will move up to the 100-year flood to the Rio de Flag. Again, this is a plan profile, so you can see the roads. This is the road if you're looking at it, either east or west, doesn't really matter. Underneath the middle of the road would be that large pipe, and then we'd have proposed new sewer on both sides as well as a proposed new water line. That's, I guess, all I had for that. Funding for it, so for the drainage component, we are expecting a FEMA HMGP grant, so it's a hazard mitigation grant from state disaster declaration money from the Diamond Fire down near Phoenix. So this is this excess money that they have from that disaster declaration back in 2022. We are expecting that at the tune of $863,000. So the full amount for the drainage component That would be a 75% federal match to the 25% city match. And then for the water and sewer component, that we do expect funding from our Aging Infrastructure Fund for both water and sewer. And with that, that's all I have, kind of trying to keep it quick here. If you have any questions, happy to take them.
Thank you, Ed. I do have some public comment, but I will put it out to council first if you have any questions. Councilmember McCarthy.
Hi, Ed, thank you. If the Rio de Flag were at a high level, a flood condition, is this pipe network high enough that you wouldn't get backflow from the Rio into the neighborhood?
We shouldn't see that just because of the elevation difference. I mean, you wouldn't be as efficient of a pipe if the Rio is full, because obviously you're going to be slowing your velocity as you reach that confluence of the Rio. That would be extremely unlikely to see that condition where you have both flooding in the neighborhood and flooding at the Rio at the same time. So when we look at regional flooding with localized flooding, we have what's called a time of concentration value. We expect a time of concentration at something like this, a local flooding condition, to be within an hour or two, whereas a time of concentration from a large regional flood, so something like the Rio de Flag, where you have 56 square miles of watershed, can be over days if you're talking about a rain on snow event. So there is usually a lag component with the Rio compared to your localized flooding. But obviously there's always potential. You can always have a time where you have this crazy storm that hits both at the same time and you have the flooding at the same time. That would be extremely unlikely.
All right, I don't see any additional questions, but if you would stay close in case questions come up during the public comment. First up, we have Tom Pearson.
Thank you, Mayor Daggett and council members, for this opportunity to speak to you. Thank you, Ed, for the great comprehensive briefing. I appreciate that very much. Well, as you know, as Ed has said, and we've been up here before talking to you about it, we are under a constant threat of floodwaters invading our property and our homes. And as you know, just last Friday night, we had a torrential rain and hailstorm, and that impacted us as well. My wife Laura and I were up with flashlights watching for rising waters. Didn't think about this at the time, but fortunately, a lot of it was hail. So it didn't rush down in the streets, it melted slowly. That was a fortuitous and rare event. But the drainage problem here, as Ed has said, is well understood. The storm drain pipes are too small. The situation is an ongoing, for us, public safety and infrastructure threat to our neighborhood. As you have heard from Ed, a solution exists and is ready to be implemented. So the action now required comes to you to implement whatever funding mechanisms are necessary to start work immediately. Waiting for years to begin this project would be a real abrogation of your most critical responsibilities to the community. So I think all of the answers are in place. It just requires the action to find the appropriate funding source, and Ed has some that he discussed with you. So I won't take any more of your time. I just want to urge you to act decisively and immediately to eliminate the threat to Mead Lane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Gail Reed.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm very happy to know that the funding is going to be available to fix the problem on Mead Lane. I'm hopeful that we don't have to wait for 2 years for this to take place because every summer is just an anxiety-producing situation. I walked down the trail this morning between Mead and Beale, and they were cutting down the vegetation that had encroached on the trail. I was glad to see. They were throwing it into the the ditch, into the Rio. And I noticed also when I walked down the trail that the Rio is silted up, so it's higher than it used to be. And with more stuff being thrown in there, I just wondered if they're going to do any dredging or any clearing out of all the stuff that's in the Rio, so that we don't come face to face with this problem of backflow that Jim mentioned. But I would certainly like it to begin as soon as possible, because I'm kind of tired of climbing over sandbags at my age, to tell you the truth, and tired of not being able to go anywhere in the summer. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, staff will look into that, because I know that there have been groups out at the Rio cleaning stuff out, so we certainly don't want more material being dropped in.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We will indeed look into that. I am confident that it's something that is unfinished at this point. But yes, great efforts are being taken and have been taken to keep the Rio free as much as possible. Vegetation and is the big item there, but other things as well, just debris in general. Can I take the opportunity, Mayor, to comment in response to what we've heard at the podium? Okay.
Certainly.
We have 3 projects being funded through FEMA dollars, all of which are important and all of which are moving forward. We're grateful for the federal dollars. Sometimes they're funneled through the state agency, DEMA, as well. They are enabling the city to do some things that otherwise we would be burdened to find the funding just out of our general fund, for example, or other funds, water services. So the FEMA funds are very important to us. I just want to offer the comment that we have attributed a very high priority to this particular project. We have a good design, and the funding is in the works. So, I know reference has been made to 2 years. I think the correct statement is 2 years at the outside, indeed with hope that we'll see funding and happen before that time and the project move forward before that time. That is short of a commitment, but it is indeed a commitment that we're placing a high priority on this project and the other 2 projects as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Kessler.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. I'm so glad to be here and hear this great update from Mr. Shank. I do have some questions, and I'm really thankful that Council Member Mr. McCarthy brought up the backflow issue, because that was something I was kind of not concerned about, but questioning as well. Because I think the highest I've ever seen water in the ditch or the Rio, I would say probably was about 5 feet at its highest. And I just wanted to make sure that that would be considered, because it could happen. 100-year floods happen a lot. And I just want to accentuate the importance of being extra careful so that we don't have to spend all this money and time and still have an issue afterwards, of course. I do have several questions. Number one, how will this affect homes' personal sewer and water systems? We've already have issues of collapsed Orangeburg pipe, water pipes, that because it's an older neighborhood. I'm just wondering if this may affect that at all in a negative or positive way. I'm also curious, has this plan been approved yet? And if not, how long is the permitting and approval process? How long do we have to wait for that? We've made a lot of repairs and adaptations out of our own pockets because of this ongoing problem of insufficient infrastructure, and yet we've been paying higher interest rates, higher stormwater fees, water fees, and so it's been a financial burden on us as well, and I was wondering if the city would please grant us some sort of a reprieve financially somehow to make up for those costs that we've been paying for over the last couple of years. I know my other neighbors have been there much longer. Gail's had to spend a lot of money to get a water trench through her yard. So we've been kind of filling in where the city hasn't, and I would love to ask for some sort of a reprieve, either through taxes or fees or water fees, something like that, to make up for what we've had to spend here over the last couple of years, last year and a half, a couple of years actually, it's been going on. And my last question is very simple. When will we be safe from flooding? Can we get an actual date when we will be safe from flooding? Thanks.
Thank you. Ed, are you able to answer the first couple of questions?
I'll see if I can remember them. The first question, if I remember correctly, was about the aging infrastructure. So that's water and sewer. So that is a component of this larger project. It will not be FEMA funded. The FEMA funding is for the drainage component. But and the water services as a division, as I mentioned, we do have funding for aging infrastructure for both water and sewer. So those mains will be replaced. That is the plan, at least. From Highway 180 to the Rio, so for that portion. So that will be improved, and obviously new sewer and water mains for that section. For the other questions, I don't think I'm really qualified to answer for any sort of rebates or any sort of tax or utility incentives. We don't provide anything to that type of level. There is a flood proofing program through the Sustainability Division that can help with small grants. So it's a small grant program for helping with flood assistance, but that is within sustainability. For the question about when will it be out of a flood danger, we are very careful ever saying that you're out of flood danger. You had a very good conversation yesterday between the city and county, the Joint Commission on fire, and I'd say flooding is very similar to that. So it's very difficult to say that you'll ever be completely out of flood danger, just like you'd be ever out of fire danger or hurricane or anything else, depending on where you live. Obviously not hurricanes here. But the flood risk will be greatly reduced. So yes, when this project is complete, the flood risk will be probably one of the lower flood risks throughout the community. I don't know if that really answers the question, but when it is complete, the flood risk for Meade will be substantially lower.
So when we receive the funding from FEMA, do you have a timeline for when the construction can start?
Not at an exact time. We still need full design. So right now we're at 60% design. We are going to work towards 100% design. There are permits that we need to get, both local permits, but then also through sewer, we need to get ADEQ approval. So we need to get our WISAs in place. That's our sewer impact studies. So there is a few steps there. And then procurement, we will need to bring in either a CMAR, so a construction manager at risk, or a JOC, so a job order contractor for the construction phase. So like most of our capital projects, there is a little bit of a lag between when we get the grant approval and when we can move forward. But it shouldn't be more than, we're talking months, not years. So we should be able to move forward pretty quickly once we have the grant funds in place.
And will you continue with the design process and the permitting process separate from receiving the money? You're continuing to work on that?
Correct, yeah. So we have the 60% design right now. I need to put in the requisition for the 100%, sorry. So that's on my plate to do this week. We have our contractor on board, so our designer for that. So they'll be doing their survey and the design up to 100%. We hope to have that all complete before grant award so that we can move pretty quickly.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews. Councilmember House.
Thank you. I think one of the other questions, and you may have just touched on it, but Ms. Kessler had asked if the plan had been approved, and if not, how long until the actual plan is approved. So is that part of the design process?
Can you clarify by plan? Are you talking about the design or what
I think
plan?
the plan for the new infrastructure that will be going in. So we're in the midst of designing it. You're at 60% there, but I think the question was, has that actually been approved so that as soon as the design is done, it can then move forward?
So we're at 60%. We are moving towards 100%. So when we have the 100% ready and approved through all the different city channels, then we can move forward once we have that grant award. Like most grants, we are not allowed to break ground before we have the grant award. So even if we have 100% designs tomorrow, which won't happen, but let's say we had it tomorrow, we can do no groundbreaking activities due to the federal compliance that we need to work through. So that'd be an environmental and historic preservation, several different environmental and historic preservation acts and laws. So we do hope, that's not really answering the question, but we are moving forward. We do think that we'll have those 100% designs fully approved through the city process before that grant award.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Ed, just on a side note, if you have any pushback from other departments on issuing permits and stuff, let us know and we'll put pressure on them. Can we get, I know we talked about this last year when we were approving the stormwater rate increases. Could we get a updated schedule of projects that are either in queue or set to, start design and stuff for next year and on and on and on? Could we get an updated list?
Yeah, we actually have two processes for that. So one would be the budget retreat process in the winter. So we will have our new capital improvement projects through that capital retreat that I believe is in January or February. And then separate from that, we are also working with our consultants, the same consultant that we had for the rate. So Water Resources Economics, we have them, we have sorry, my brain just had a complete brain fart. We have a contract with them, to review our financial plan for this coming year. So we expect to have a reviewed financial plan with our cost of service by next summer that will review everything that we provided you at council during that rate increase. So we'll give you a snapshot of where we are at the health of the Stormwater Fund.
And when will that be? Next year?
It'll be next year, yeah. So we need to have enough time to actually look at what's been done since that rate increase so that we have a pretty good snapshot. So right now it's still a little bit early. It wouldn't be very helpful for you to show you because it's so shortly after that rate increase. But by next summer, we should have a full fiscal year to review.
Thank you. And then this question is actually, where did Nicole go? Sustainability. Nicole, can you come up and tell us what grants are available for flood mitigation through sustainability?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Nicole Antonopoulos, Sustainability Director. Spoiler alert from, I was going to cover some of our grants and opportunities in my update, but correct, and thank you, Ed, for the shout out. Sustainability does have a couple of different resources for our community. We do have flood prevention grants up to $7,500, and then we also have neighborhood sustainability grants, which are currently open through the end of this month, that community groups and individuals can apply for depending on the project. These grants are reviewed by the Sustainability Commission as they are their projects. So the website for our information can be found on our website, the city's website, and then / flood prevention. Sorry, I wasn't sure what that was either. I think it's a moth. Hopefully not a bee. And be happy to provide additional information to the City Council so that can be forwarded on. It's also additional information can be found on the city's sustainability website, which is, again, the city's email or website and / sustainability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are those grants available after work has been done?
Ideally, no. The grants are, thank you for that. The grants are prescriptive. We work very closely with Stormwater to identify what measures should be taken following FEMA guidelines. And they are focused on essentially, and Ed would be the expert here, but what are best practices in stormwater for flood proofing or flood prevention. So we are trying to help protect the home. So things such as a blow-up flood barrier, what are called dam easies, which are essentially quick installation of what would be considered a door dam, and that can be put in doors at the back of the house or the front of the house that are easy to install and take down, so they're not permanent and can be available during an event.
Okay, Councilmember Harris has a question, and I don't know if it's for you, so maybe hang out. Councilmember Harris?
Yes, I just want to make sure or make it clear that I thought I heard one of the residents ask about getting some type of break on their taxes or whatever related to this. And I want to make sure that we're clear that that's not what these grants are for. Is that correct, Nicole?
Correct. Thank you for making that clarification.
Yeah,
This is not,
yeah.
they are for,
This is not money that you can just give people. They have to do some type of a project.
correct.
Right. Okay. I just want clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any additional questions or comments? Thank you, Ed. City Manager?
Thank you for the discussion. I think we'll have some quick updates in order from housing, human resources, and sustainability. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Hi, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Marissa Malloy, Housing Specialist for the Housing Section, and I will be presenting some updates from our August newsletter today. For everyone watching, our newsletter comes out every other month, and you can view them on our Housing Section webpage. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen really quick. All right. So housing staff have been working on establishing the framework for the bond-funded homebuyer assistance program. Staff have been conducting reviews with internal staff and the Housing Commission to further refine the program. For the Flagstaff Regional Plan, housing staff have been attending Regional Plan Steering Committee meetings to discuss draft chapters and offer insights on housing-related topics throughout the plan, and have been coordinating with comprehensive planning staff to refine the narrative, goals, and policies for the public review draft. Staff joined the community and Governor Hobbs in attending a groundbreaking ceremony for the 40-unit starter home development to be built by Habitat for Humanity of Northern Arizona. The city awarded $397,398 in ARPA funds for civil infrastructure and land development costs to Habitat, and have reserved $130,000 in incentive policy funds for the construction of the first 10 homes. After the groundbreaking, housing staff had the opportunity to attend a small roundtable discussion on health and human services with Governor Hobbs. Sarah Dar and Justina Costa were among the 10 community attendees, including representatives from Foundation for Senior Living, Flagstaff Shelter Services, Coconino County Health and Human Services, Catholic Charities, and Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona. City staff shared information regarding the rental incentive bond program and recent awards to Foundation for Senior Living, IPA funding to Roars and Habitat, the Last Cap project, and Council's recent action to allow housing in the public facility zone with a conditional use permit. The City of Flagstaff Housing Authority welcomed 2 new hires, Richard Perry as Housing Navigator and Samantha Joe as Administrative Specialist. Samantha Joe is taking over the Administrative Specialist role after Dion Paul was promoted to Housing Services Specialist. We'd like to give a shout out to the Housing Authority's maintenance staff. So maintenance staff for the Housing Authority have been addressing capital needs at public housing developments Brannan Homes and Seiler Homes, including working with contractors to address gas line and water line repairs and remapping public housing utility lines. This work was led by Maintenance Manager Keith Natumia, whose diligence and expertise led to the completion of these repairs as quickly as possible and avoiding the relocation of public housing residents due to extended utility shutoff. Housing staff recently presented the 2024-2025 implementation for the 10-year housing plan to you. The complete 2024-2025 implementation plan can be found on the Housing Section's webpage. Housing Authority staff hosted their annual neighborhood barbecues for residents at Seiler Homes, Brannan Homes, and Clark Homes. Special thanks to the Flagstaff Fire Department and Flagstaff Police Department personnel for stopping by to introduce themselves to our residents, especially the neighborhood youth. And housing staff attended the U.S. Housing Community Development Conference and Expo in Dallas, Texas. The expo included over 650 attendees with over 300 government representatives from cities and housing authorities nationwide. Multiple session options were offered covering topics such as sustainable building solutions, funding for development, artificial intelligence in housing, private and public partnerships, ARPA funding, housing authority topics, and much more. And we'd like to thank you for approving the first ever ground lease for the construction of affordable rental units on city property. The 99-year ground lease between Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona and the city allows for the construction and management of 11 three-bedroom units, which will provide permanent, affordable rental housing for low-income households. Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona property managers will connect tenants with community-based resources and case management support as needed. And for an update on the last cap, the consultant team provided a final draft of the code diagnostics report, which is the first phase of a larger code analysis project. Consultants recently delivered a scoping memo prior to collaborating with city staff to explore new code concepts. And lastly, housing staff facilitated the closing of a permanently affordable home in Crestview in June. The family purchasing the home is under the 80% area median income limit, which makes this achievement even more significant given the current market. So as a reminder, our newsletter comes out every other month, and our October newsletter will be available next Tuesday, October 1st. Some things to look forward to include updates on our bond-funded adaptive reuse and home ownership programs, the Housing Section's Housing America Month activities, an exciting update on the Flagstaff Regional Plan, and more. And if you would like to sign up to receive our newsletter, head on over to the Housing Section webpage. And under the Newsletter and Announcements tab, there's a link here to sign up, and you can view all of our previous newsletters. And that is all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sarah, do you all have anything additional? Thank you. Councilmember Matthews.
Sarah, are you guys coming up here for another presentation on the agenda? Okay. So I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to ask. So if it's during your presentation, you can address it then. But the first paragraph or section on that presentation talked about home buyers assistance program. And it just was a little vague for me. Like, we're going to get to this, we're working on this and stuff. If you could provide more, maybe a timeline, expectation, because I know you're working on it, but it didn't give me too much meat.
Mayor, Council, Sarah Dar, Housing Director. Let me take just a second and answer that question. We'll be in front of you on October 8th. I've been mixing up dates all day. October 8th with a presentation detailing what is being proposed for that program expansion with an RSOQ to follow shortly after Council's input. Housing Commission discussed last month and we'll discuss again this Thursday, and then coming to you within, let's see what, that's 2 weeks from tonight. So there'll be massive amounts of detail coming your way 2 weeks from tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, anything else? All right, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the questions. Next up, we have Human Resources.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to kind of go over a few of the acts of excellence that the Human Resources and Risk Management Division has been working on. Let's see if I can get the newsletter to come up here. Thank you. Oh, this mouse is fun. So as we kind of scroll through and look at our newsletter, we do try to send our newsletter out once a month. Is that going to cooperate? Maybe not. Not responding. And so I'll just start with some talking points. And so as the trustee of the Northern Arizona Public Employees Benefit Trust, I am the benefits committee chair. Some of the things that we work with in the benefits realm is wellness initiatives. And so we do have some challenges that are going out. They would be team challenges and things that we'd be working on in the benefits realm. And so that might be a team member that challenges the rest of their team to maybe get so many walking steps in a day or get their 64 ounces of water in. So those are some of the things that we are working through as your representatives with the Northern Arizona Public Employees Benefits Trust. As we start to scroll through the newsletter and we look to some of the things, we do highlight those people that have recently come on with us or those people that we would like to congratulate on recent promotions. We also have had recent promotions within the realm of human resources and risk management. With me tonight is one of our newest additions to the team. We have Sheila Jewell, who is our new HR manager, who's been on with us for about a week and a half. We've been keeping her real busy, and we're real glad to have her. And so she's our newest addition to our team, along with Linda Alvarado, who has accepted a position with us as a senior admin assistant. And so she'll be the first face you see when you come into the Human Resources and Risk Management Division now, and we are so excited to have her. When we look at some of the spotlights that we do throughout our newsletter, every month we try to spotlight an employee, and so this month we spotlighted Carol Harvey. We'll highlight a different employee with the city of Flagstaff every month and give them the opportunity to share a little bit more about themselves, and we've enjoyed doing that for several newsletters now. We plan to continue that tradition. As we talk a little bit more about benefits, we often try to highlight something that might be a burning question with an employee at the city of Flagstaff, like what does QLE stand for? And within this realm, Cindy Perger has shared some information about QLEs. When we look more to some of those wellness initiatives, those eating healthy challenges, we do offer Vera Whole Health Wellness app where people can track their steps or where they can log their healthy eating challenges. And it allows those employees to earn points towards putting their name in, so to speak, a drawing of maybe a gift card or something like that. And so you can win maybe a grocery or an Amazon, and that's hosted through the NAPEBT Trust Fund. So we like to let people know, and we do provide updates on how people are doing in their wellness challenges. When we look down to classification and compensation, this is something that city has eyes on quite a bit because we're going through those market rate adjustments and those classification and compensation studies. I'm just going to give you a little bit of data on some of the things that our team is working on right now. So we are doing some enhancements to those pre-employment onboarding experiences to be a more user-friendly and accessible to candidates that are interested in coming to work for the city, and that's called Onboard. So we will roll out Onboard on October 13th. We are hosting those training sessions to help people with that. We also are pulling together a welcome video, which will showcase for about 30-second increments an employee from fire, an employee from pros, economic vitality, courts, human resources, risk management, and then also CMO office. And that small video will be available when a candidate logs into that onboarding area to apply with us. We're very excited to have that welcome video available so people can see who we are and why we're so passionate about working at the city. So that should be coming forthwith. We have one more interview and then we'll pull that video together and that will be available for viewing. We currently, with the city, have a vacancy rate of about 24.7%. We are
exceeding other comparable industries, so other public sectors, in our time to fill vacant positions. We're right around 74 days. That is 119 days in other public sectors, and so very proud of that. We have a goal of 45 days to fill from applicant through the process. So we're working very vigilantly towards that. We're very excited that we are ahead of the industry standard on that. We currently have 64 open recruitments, and we've hired 123 people year to date, with 50 of those people hired since July. So we are working on outreach to job fairs in the area. We have attended a Chef's Steal. We had at least 4 of our people went to Chef's Steal to try to recruit for open city positions. We are currently working on practice of 3 more events that we're planning on attending in order to recruit as a stronger effort to build that outreach and be that person-to-person response to people that may be interested in coming on with the city of Flagstaff. So those are some of the things that we're working in: classification, compensation, and recruitment. We do highlight in our newsletter how you're scored when you are evaluated as an employee. And so when we look at that perform function in our NeoGov platform, which is where you log in to evaluate people, when you're looking at how that works, we've provided the scoring in our newsletter because we've had a lot of questions about that, and we wanted to be very transparent of how someone may score or what their merit might be based on the rating of their overall employee evaluation. So we've provided that as well. When we talk about some of those upcoming recruitments that we've attended, this is a photo of a couple of members of our team, and then we worked in conjunction with Public Works to really speak to the benefits of working at the City of Flagstaff. And so when we talk about some of those things that we're offering, we're also very proud to offer training and development that we can customize to every division within the city based on their interest and their needs. We will build that training and development event, and then we will come to those divisions and host an on-site training event for whatever it is that they would like us to present from the human resources and risk management realm. And so we've hosted one already. We have 2 more that are planned in the upcoming months, and we're very excited also to offer the Learn portion of the NeoGov platform, which is where we can preload learning modules that meet our compliance requirements. And so we're working very vigilantly to provide more and more outreach to the different divisions of what they would need. When we're kind of getting towards the end here, we are working constantly on keeping that employee handbook updated with any changes that might be coming through the policies and directives. And so to close out with the risk management part of our division, we're offering on-site trainings in multiple safety. We have electrical safety. We have a number of different events that we're hosting around the city for those people that need to meet their requirements for hazardous energy, anything that might fall within the realm of risk management and safety. And that's, other than looking back in September, that was our National Preparedness Month, so we did host a few safety events as well. We did have some cost savings as well when we paid our insurance this year. That came before you guys when you were just back from your recess, and so we did save about $500,000 in our premium on our insurance, and that's due to a lot of different factors, but we're very proud of that you don't see very often your insurance premiums going down. Usually they're all climbing, right? So we're very proud of that fact on behalf of the city. We do draw awareness to some of the things that might be coming up, and then we close out with some words of wisdom. And that's our newsletter for Human Resources and Risk Management. We try to put our newsletter out at least once a month.
Thank you. We have a question and a comment from Councilmember Harris.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a question and a comment, I guess. First of all, job fairs. Do we participate? And I'm going back to our rate of unemployment or vacancies, not unemployment, vacancies. So do we attend any of the job fairs that I've seen around town to see if we can get any employees?
We actually have scheduled coming up, we're going to be at NAU for the business school as well as the graduate school, and then there is an evening job fair that's hosted at the Flagstaff Unified School District. So we have a couple that are on the roster that we plan on attending, and then we also outside of job fairs. So yeah, yes, we do, Councilman Harris, we are trying to attend those with at least 2 staff members representing from Human Resources and Risk Management. And the one that we attended at Chef Steel, we actually went on site because we knew that there was going to be closure to see if any of those employees would be interested in employment with the city of Flagstaff. And so we're trying to do outreach as well to places that we know that people may be looking at that in their immediate future, and to see if they would be interested in coming on with us at the city of Flagstaff.
Okay, and just a comment, um, do we encourage our employees, current city employees, to like refer a friend, kind of deal? You know, like I know that there's vacancies at the city, so why don't you take a look at our city vacancies and, you know, apply if you think you fit the qualifications?
Right. Thank you for that. We do incentivize referrals, and we do welcome that. We do try to highlight that as well. So I believe we just increased that incentive to $500, $250 and $500, and that was fairly recently. And so that was an increase, I believe, from 50 and 75. So we did increase that dramatically. We do get a lot of referrals from current employees, which speaks volumes to what a great place this is to work.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, council? I will say that I'm going to be at the Disability Resources Fair with a commission member from our Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living. So if you have any materials that you would like us to have at our city booth, I would be happy to have them there.
We welcome that, and we will definitely send some information with you. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you. All right, Nicole.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Nicole Antonopoulos, Sustainability Director. Bear with me for one moment. It does not appear that my file is on our drive. Here we go. Great, thank you so much. We have a combined update for the council for July and August, so I will try to go quick because it's very dense with information. And I'd like to start off by highlighting our community food assessment, which was released, and this was funded through the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's a 3-year assessing and growing a sustainable community food systems project. The council's going to hear a lot more about this next month from our team, as well as the consultants and community-based organizations that worked with us on this project. We are really pleased with the outcome of the assessment, and I look forward to the conversation with the council. I did reference this just a few moments ago, but the Neighborhood Sustainability Grant Program is accepting applications through September 30th. And the Sustainability Office and Sustainability Commission are requesting applications for grants up to $7,500 to fund creative community sustainability projects in building energy efficiency, climate action, food, public health, community resilience, transportation, and waste prevention and education. This is available to individuals, groups, nonprofits, and businesses with project ideas within the city of Flagstaff. Very excited to share with the council that the citywide energy and water conservation project with NORESCO achieved substantial completion in August. This was a huge lift for the city organization, and it was a year-long effort to bring forward energy savings at 44 city facilities. And it is estimated to save more than $200,000 a year annually for the city organization in utility costs. The project was successful thanks to the support and collaboration of Public Works, pros, water services, management services, community development, legal, and city leadership, as well as the patients with all city employees. And if I may, I have to give a huge shout out to Danae Pressler and Joey Zamora. They were our MVPs to get this project across the finish line. And I promise you, coordinating 44 different facilities with weatherization, lighting, and water improvements was no simple undertaking. So thank you, Joey and Danae. I'd like to highlight in our climate action section just a few items. In community resilience, this past July, our Climate Resilience Project hosted a workshop to equip participants with essential skills and knowledge for handling emergency scenarios. And local emergency management experts from Coconino County Emergency Management shared practical strategies, demonstrated tools, and provided free kits to enhance preparedness and foster resilience. And then in August, the Community Resilience Project partnered with the Watershed Cleanup Series to remove invasive plant species, woody debris, and litter from the Rio de Flag. And then, as I mentioned briefly, our flood prevention assistance program is accepting applications, and property owners and renters can apply for grants up to $7,500 to purchase flood-proofing materials such as floodgates, sealants, and temporary barriers, which I mentioned earlier. Priority will be given to those who have experienced flooding in their neighborhood or at their home and are at risk for future flooding. Again, we have worked very closely with our friends in stormwater to identify our community members that are most at risk. And moving down to equity engagement, and I know this has been a conversation point in the past in terms of how much do we engage with our community. You will see in our monthly reports that we do provide touch points with our community members. And in July and August, our climate action team engaged with over 400 people in the Flagstaff community. One additional update I'd like to provide is our home weatherization and energy rebate program has been accepting new applications for this fiscal year, and we've received over 30 applications in July and August, which historically have been our slow months for weatherization. We're really pleased to say that the confidence and recognition of this program is well received in the community, and we're seeing a more continuous use of this important resource. Within that context, we've provided over $27,000 already this year to community members that are improving the efficiency and safety of their homes. Jenny Neiman already provided an update on Solar United Neighbors, but I have to give another shout out because our launch of our 4th round is currently underway. So if anyone's listening, please join. And I would like to share that staff continue to pursue grant opportunities for adoption of electric vehicles in our city fleet and across the broader community. We just submitted a $2.4 million grant to the Federal Department of Transportation for critical electric vehicle infrastructure throughout our community that targets our most vulnerable neighborhoods. And then in youth climate action, we are gearing up for another year and we'll begin accepting applications for our Climate Action Challenge among our Flagstaff youth. And the Sustainability Officers Program and the Climate Action Team is partnering with the City of Phoenix on youth engagement over the course of the 2024-25 school year. Phoenix has run a similar program with Sustainability Officers for 10 years and is expanding that program statewide. So they've invited the city of Flagstaff to be a collaborator, and this partnership will build out capacity within FUSD, and the city of Phoenix is offering up to $2,000 in incentives for schools to participate. So we've been working with the school district to inform them of this incredible opportunity. Now, moving down to our neighborhood engagement and volunteer services section, our community stewards team has been busy, and you can see here in our report that we've had 12 cleanups in July and August, which resulted in 15 bags of recycling and 36 bags of trash being collected in our community. 159 community members participated, donating over 140 hours of their time. We continue to partner with our friends in open space and are hosting invasive plant species workshops and weed pull series throughout the summer. In terms of our employee volunteer initiatives, our employees are just doing amazing and in accepting the city manager's challenge. We've had over 215 volunteers who have participated in over 140 volunteer events, donating more than 625 hours. There are some great photos in our monthly report, and I'll just hold on these for a second, but this is a good picture of sandbag removing in Coconino Estates this past July, and I know some of you were out there, so thank you for that. Moving on to stream stewards, I want to highlight our event on July 13th, which was in a section of the Rio de Flag, which runs through Coconino Estates. 9 community members volunteered, and we removed 23 bags of invasive species between Mead Lane and Anderson Road. And then at the August Watershed Cleanup Series, which took place on August 10th, 13 volunteers removed 2 truckloads of woody debris, invasive plants, and litter from the channel of Sinclair Wash off of Lone Tree Road. And our neighborhood engagement and volunteer section engaged with more than 1,800 community members over the summer. And in addition to that, one incredibly fun opportunity that we had that I got to participate in was also meeting with a Japanese delegation through a national program, federal program, and they came to visit Flagstaff to learn about our clean energy commitments. And we also invited friends from NAU and Solar United Neighbors to share the afternoon with the delegation from Japan. And to wrap this up, I appreciate your patience. I'm just going to scroll down to waste prevention. On August 3rd, we hosted another Fix-It clinic, and we had community members repair more than 40 household items, preventing over 300 pounds of waste going to the landfill. We have been hosting Fix-It clinics for over 15 years, and the only way that this is a successful program is all of our volunteers that come in and spend their day fixing items for our community members for free. So this is just a big shout out and thank you to all of those community members that help make this event so successful. And then I just want to highlight that our Sustainability Commission meets monthly. They have been volunteering their time out in the community to help promote the neighborhood sustainability grants. So I just want to thank them for their time outside of their regularly scheduled meeting. And with that, our social media continues to reach more and more people, and we've been reaching more than 15,000 people with Facebook and more, or close to 7,000 people with Instagram. So with that, Mayor and Council, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. Councilmember Sweet has a comment.
Thank you. Nicole, I just wanted to thank you and your team. I was there at the sandbag removal in Coconino Estates, and it was run beautifully by your team, and the residents were so excited. So I was there putting the sandbags in, and it felt really good to be taking them out, and those residents were very appreciative, so thank you.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
City Manager.
That is all, Mayor. Thank you.
I have a quick question for you. Is or are staff going to be volunteering for the general election as well? Do they still get a day off in order to volunteer at the polls?
Yeah, I think we did everything we could on that. I understand there is a stipend, and I also understand that it's under the volunteer program. So the way it works on that is all the employees who participate in these programs, whether it be cleaning up the drainage or removing sandbags or this event that you're speaking to, by the end of the calendar year, all the employees, that the hours are aggregated for all of the volunteer events. All the volunteer hours are aggregated. The employees who participate in that are then awarded 1 or 2 or possibly 3 days off, dependent upon how many aggregate hours are realized each and every year. To illustrate with an example, this last year, I believe there was 1 day off awarded for the employees, but that was in the inaugural year of this program, so it was pretty good. So it is incentivized. A day off and with the election, also a stipend. Thank you.
Thank you. But volunteering at the polls works the same way as our regular employee volunteer program.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, it looks like we are ready for item number 7, which is the Creative Flagstaff Annual Update. Welcome, Julie and Heidi.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Can you all hear me?
Yes, welcome, Mr. McIntyre.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Dave McIntyre. I'm the Community Investment Director for the City of Flagstaff. And my apologies for not being able to be there with you in person, but I'm getting over an illness and didn't want to share it with everybody. So Creative Flagstaff is the lead arts agency for the City of Flagstaff and the region. They partner with the city to provide administration of BBB-funded arts and science grants to community nonprofits and artists, and also to bring their expertise to many activities that enhance the arts, culture, and science sectors in Flagstaff. These activities, which you'll hear more about shortly, can range from artist and provider trainings to curated art and theater exhibitions at the Coconino Center for the Arts. They also partner with the county for more regional efforts. All funding from the city to Creative Flagstaff is either Bed, Board, and Beverage, or BBB funding, or ARPA funding. With these resources, Creative Flagstaff works with and for the city to continue to grow and support an important sector for the community's economy, and as importantly, for our overall quality of life. You may have heard that Creative Flagstaff has had a change in leadership over the summer, and the new interim executive director, Julie Komnick, has been working hard to ensure a smooth transition and to advance the role of the organization. City staff has very much enjoyed working with her. I'll pass the microphone, but I'll remain available for any questions you may have. And so here to present on their efforts is interim executive director, Julie Komnick.
David, thank you for that introduction. I'd like to start by offering our gratitude to the City of Flagstaff for the ongoing support of Creative Flagstaff to serve as our local arts, culture, and science agency. Creative Flagstaff proudly operates Coconino Center for the Arts, which is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. It was lovely to celebrate this landmark with several members of the City Council at the weekend celebration earlier in September. Council members Deborah Harris and Miranda Sweet, thank you for joining us. With Coconino Center for the Arts now in its 40th year, we've been compiling our archives to share the story of the organization, and it's remarkable to see how far we've come over the years. Much of Creative Flagstaff's programming is offered through CCA, and I'm looking forward to highlighting how we maintain a close and collaborative relationship with the city in our offerings. This year, with the increased support of the City of Flagstaff, Creative Flagstaff is expanding on a myriad of services related to the arts, science, and cultural sectors of our community. At Coconino Center for the Arts, Creative Flagstaff is planning enhanced exhibitions and programs by producing 5 unique exhibitions in the main gallery and 8 additional exhibitions in the project gallery and satellite venues this year. CCA's 3-year exhibition calendar projects a balanced rotation, including solo, group, and juried exhibitions by local, national, and international artists, with attention to diversity of presenters and audiences. Exhibitions are selected by the CCA Exhibition Selection Committee, which is a subcommittee of the CCA Advisory Board from a pool of artist submissions. Funding from the City of Flagstaff is enabling us to begin to offer modest honoraria to artists to offset shipping and travel expenses directly associated with the exhibitions that they share with our community. Flagstaff residents and visitors can regularly participate in a robust calendar of programming that accompanies each exhibition, with guest experts and educators expanding on exhibition themes through lectures, panel discussions, and creative art workshops. Creative Flagstaff supports and promotes art, science, and education resources for youth. The Youth Arts Exhibition, held every March, is open to young artists from Flagstaff and across Coconino County. We've begun targeted invitations to schools and art teachers to increase participation, and we assist with the transportation of artwork if distance is an obstacle. We've also begun offering a youth art education curriculum for all of our exhibitions, with free field trips to bring K through 12 students to CCA for exhibitions year-round. Youth performance is an integral part of our programming, with free use of the theater by school groups and music organizations during Youth Arts Month. We're excited to launch youth day camps during spring and summer breaks and look forward to expanding our partnerships with schools citywide for youth-focused performances and music and theater activities year-round. Creative Flagstaff supports growth of Southwest culture in the performing arts by hosting wide-ranging concerts and performances at CCA. We now serve as the primary booking agents for many of our concerts and performances and have significantly increased our offerings to the community, with 50 unique performances planned for this year. The new Emerging Artists series will present paid opportunities to novice performers in Flagstaff and the surrounding area. The theater also serves as a venue for convening creative community. In response to visitor feedback, Creative Flagstaff plans to facilitate quarterly community forums on timely topics such as artificial intelligence in the arts and cultural appropriation and sensitivity. Networking conversations based on discipline and sector will pair creatives with mentors for professional development connections, along with conversations on community-wide cultural leadership, arts administration, and collaborative marketing. Just last week, in partnership with Flagstaff Beautification Arts and Sciences, we hosted the Arizona Public Art Administrators Annual Meeting for a day-long forum on relevant topics in public art. Creative Flagstaff aims to build partnerships like this with other local nonprofit organizations for collaborative programming on entrepreneurship. There are multiple ways that Creative Flagstaff supports the Flagstaff community. In addition to regular exhibitions and art workshops, we periodically host community art markets for local artisans to share and sell their work. This year, Creative Flagstaff will increase the number of art markets it offers at CCA. We hosted the first market at the 40th anniversary celebration. We're evolving the Winter Artisan Market into a European-style outdoor market with heathers and fire pits. And we'll host a third market in the spring, coinciding with the Contemporary Indigenous Perspective exhibition at CCA. Creative Flagstaff offers creative art workshops and professional development opportunities programmed through Coconino Center for the Arts. Recent offerings include workshops in digital archiving, podcasting, videography, and photography. With the city's increased allocation of funding, this year we're rolling out a professional development workshop series for artists, creatives, and nonprofits, instructed by our own staff members paired with regional experts. All of these events are free and open to the community. We launched the series in August with an introduction to grant writing for artists, creative, and nonprofits with our finance director, joined by the city's own David McIntyre, and a representative from Arizona Commission on the Arts. This session provided valuable insight into sources for grant funding and guided participants through an application process with over 100 people in attendance. In November, Writing for Artists and Creatives will present different writing strategies tailored to typical requirements for grants, exhibitions, fellowships, and other creative opportunities. In January, Introduction to Finance for Artists, Creatives, and Nonprofits will present how to manage finances, providing a comprehensive introduction to basic bookkeeping, financial reporting, and preparation for tax filings. And in May, Artwork Photographic Documentation will teach artists to professionally photograph their own work, along with post-processing, editing, and formats for digital platforms and professional applications, with camera equipment and editing software available for participant use at Coconino Center for the Arts. These topics were requested by our local artists and audiences. We recognize the need for these types of workshops to strengthen the applications of local artists and nonprofits toward professional opportunities, which brings us to the Arts and Science grants. We greatly value the grant-making role of Creative Flagstaff, which directly aligns with our mission of fostering creative opportunity. Since 2017, serving as the city's lead arts agency, Creative Flagstaff has been responsible for administering Flagstaff's bed, board, and beverage funds to eligible nonprofits through a comprehensive process that includes applications and presentations reviewed by a panel of local professionals. Already in fiscal year 25, from the $500,000 issued to Creative Flagstaff as a pass-through from BBB funds, $405,000 has been allocated for general operating support, awarded and issued to 36 local nonprofit applicants. The balance is slated for the project's grants that will be awarded after board ratification in December. Remaining American Rescue Plan Act funds have been successfully distributed to nonprofits for equipment and professional development needs. We're tracking final payouts and a few extensions, and with any final ARPA funds being rolled into the 2025 project grants that will be allocated by December. And finally, engagement. We've demonstrated the many ways that Creative Flagstaff reaches the Flagstaff community with programs offered through Coconino Center for the Arts and the impact of grant making to Flagstaff's nonprofit arts and science organizations. Thanks to city funding, we look forward to increasing our presence and opportunities for community engagement throughout the Flagstaff community. Many of you participated in ArtX, Art and Ideas Experience Arizona last spring, which funded 30 creative projects with support from the City of Flagstaff Beautification Arts and Sciences Program and the Arizona Office of Tourism. 180 events were presented over 10 days, demonstrated here with David Corner's piano performance in Buffalo Park, called Rising of the Flower Moon in collaboration with Flagstaff's Dark Skies Coalition. ArtX continues this year with scaled grants for artists to fuel periodic activations across Flagstaff with plans for a concentrated biennial experience in 2026. Aiming to overcome limitations of access and to diversify audience, and as an extension of ArtX, Creative Flagstaff is planning to pilot a satellite art exhibition in Flagstaff this year, aligned with exhibition themes at CCA. With the success of the pilot, we look forward to rolling out a schedule for continued temporary satellite exhibitions throughout various areas of Flagstaff. Also paired with ArtX, Creative Flagstaff is actively re-engaging and revitalizing the monthly First Friday Flagstaff Art Walk with expanded offerings in Heritage Square to bring increased visibility to Flagstaff's downtown galleries and businesses. I believe this illuminates the ways that Creative Flagstaff is partnering with the City of Flagstaff to develop and enhance activities that elevate the arts, science, and cultural sectors. We couldn't do this important work without the City of Flagstaff's continued support. Thank you, and with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Julie. Do we have any comments or questions? I would just point out that the BB tax that you mentioned as how you're able to do all of this is known as Proposition 487 on this November's ballot. Thank you.
Thanks.
So much. All right. We are down to item number 8, 18-month report for the 10-year housing plan.
Good afternoon, council members, Vice Mayor, Mayor. I'm Adriana Fisher, and I am the Housing Program Manager for the Housing section. You might remember me from being here in June to present the 18-month implementation for the 10-year housing plan. So today, I am here to give you an overview of the 18-month report for the 10-year housing plan. For the complete report, please refer to your agenda packets. I feel like the setup changed a little bit since last time. So today's agenda includes a concise review of the 10-year housing plan, not as long as last time. Following this, I will present a summary of the 18-month report. Lastly, I have extended invitations to several key strategy collaborators who will be available either virtually or in person to help answer any questions that you may have. All right. So the 10-year housing plan was adopted on February 15, 2022 in response to a citizen's petition and Council's declaration of the housing emergency in 2020. The plan aims to create a vibrant and more livable community by increasing housing options for residents of all income levels and family sizes. As a reminder, Flagstaff's housing emergency has deep roots with no single root cause. Therefore, to achieve the vision of the plan clearly outlines a foundational framework consisting of an overarching goal supported by 2 elements, 13 policy initiatives, and 58 comprehensive strategies. To ensure accountability, transparency, and consistency, housing staff will present 2 types of annual documents each year. Each spring, we will bring forward an annual implementation plan. In the late summer or early fall, you'll receive presentations on annual reports. Okay. Today we will review the progress made on the unique 18-month implementation plan from January 2023 through June 2024. The report provides a comprehensive overview of housing market conditions and highlights significant achievements. It outlines progress made since the plan's creation, and it acknowledges existing housing resources and pertinent community and legislative efforts. The 2023 Affordable Housing Needs Assessment has been instrumental in evaluating housing market conditions for the reporting period. Critical findings from the needs assessment highlighted in the 18-month report include some of the following. In 2023, 38.9% of Flagstaff households, totaling almost 29,000 residents, were classified housing cost burdened as they spent more than 30% of their gross income on housing expenses. From 2013 to 2023, Flagstaff's area median income increased by 46.5%, while the median home sales price surged by nearly 136% to $625,000. The average family in our community of 4 still can only afford a home priced at about $312,000. During the same period, the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom unit rose by 51.5% to $1,863 per month, which remains unaffordable for a single parent with 2 children. In comparison to Phoenix, a typical family of 4 in Flagstaff is spending an additional $824 for housing of a similar type. And Flagstaff's housing expenses are 34.8% above the national average, while the overall cost of living exceeds the national average by 14.1%. These findings emphasize the persistent and significant demand for affordable housing across all income levels and housing sizes in our community. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Devonna McLaughlin and her team at Housing Solutions for their work on this assessment. All right. Now for the good news. I'm pleased to highlight the unwavering commitment demonstrated by city staff and collaborators in advancing our community goals, as outlined in the 10-year housing plan. From January 2023 to June 2024, the housing section and its partners provided support to 293 Flagstaff residents through various housing programs. Furthermore, a total of 729 new housing units were constructed during this period, with 121, or 16.6%, of them designated as affordable. This exceeds a 10% minimum goal. This substantial progress was made possible through diligent efforts in the budget process, collaborations with city staff, and partnerships with private, public, and nonprofit entities. Now, I would like to direct your attention to the graphic displayed on your screen, which is a tool for monitoring and informing the community of the progress made toward the 10-year housing plan. The graphic, in addition to the plan, annual reports, and implementation plans, is readily accessible to the public on the 10-year housing plan webpage. The graphic is updated on a quarterly basis, specifically in January, April, July, and October. In the 18-month report, you'll see this graphic with data from February 15, 2022 through June 30th, 2024. In that period, the following milestones have been achieved. 444 residents have benefited from new affordable housing units or other forms of housing assistance, including down payment and closing cost support, eviction prevention, and more. 1,216 units have been constructed with 13%, again exceeding our minimum 10% goal, designated as affordable. And 430 additional affordable units have been committed by developers, although this figure may fluctuate as commitments and agreements are updated.
Can I hop in with a question?
Absolutely.
Can you go back one slide?
Yes.
Remind me how often you update this data on the website?
Yes, Mayor, thank you for the question. It is updated quarterly, and it's typically updated in January, April, July, and October.
Great, thank you. And when on a previous slide you said that Flagstaff was $824, or that families were spending $824 more here than in Phoenix, is that an annual or is that a monthly?
One second. I should have clarified. Thank you for the question.
It's got to be monthly.
Each
Yeah.
month. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense otherwise, right?
Right. Why would you include it if it was just that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm wondering if you, you don't have to do it right now, but during this conversation we're having, if you can help us and the public understand again how affordable and market rate works together and impacts our needs, and how when we say that we need housing along the spectrum, what that means. And when you give these numbers, this is the city's work and our housing partners' work, right? It's everyone in Flagstaff.
Correct.
These are the results.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And Councilmember Matthews.
Could you just expand and explain what created, I understand, but preserved means? Like, was it a affordable housing unit at risk of going to market housing, or what exactly does that mean?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Matthews. This is like a rehabilitation project, for example, or if we were to make accommodations. Yeah, so I guess we're limited to rehab. That's what we mean by preserve, just preserving a unit through rehab. And rehab historically has been done for various various reasons in the past, such as allowing someone to age in place, necessary, and I'm just speaking just for internal programs, to allow someone to age in place or basic needs like a roof or safety features, so.
Could I hop on to this? Does that also include if we're able to find another developer to purchase a LIHTC, a housing tax credit property that the tax credits are about to expire and it's going to go to market rate? I'm seeing nods.
My supporting colleagues are saying yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You had a question about what does housing mean, or the affordable housing.
What we mean when we talk about the continuum and what we mean when we include market rate housing in our 10-year housing plan.
Thank you for the question. We mean by that that there's a great need in our community, not only for affordable housing. Affordable housing to me could be completely different than affordable housing to you. So we are in this 10-year housing plan trying to cater to all areas of the continuum. If you're familiar with the housing continuum, it starts at homelessness through affordable rental to maybe market rate rental or first-time home buyers, all the way through market rate permanent forever homes. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I'm looking for, because we often hear from the public, we don't need more market rate units. We need just affordable units. And so that's really what I'm getting at, is how those two things work together.
Yes. I mentioned that there's 430 committed units for affordable housing. This is because a lot of the times we work with community partners or development partners so that we are bringing in not only affordable housing, but housing that is affordable to everybody. It doesn't have to serve clients under 80% of the area median income. It has to be something that a city employee right here can afford. And we understand that the rates are really high. So by perhaps layering something like an affordable home through a land trust with some down payment assistance and an employee assistance program, we can leverage resources to where we can make the home affordable. This also works through our down payment assistance programs that you'll be hearing about in October too, where we're trying to layer resources with various down payment assistance programs for the community so that they can purchase a marketplace or a market rate home if they choose to, but also so that they can have a home that they want to buy at a rate that they can afford to pay for. Ideally, no more than 30% of their gross income, that's before taxes, towards their mortgage and utilities.
So when we're looking at a market like Flagstaff's where prices are like they are, around the country, really inflated, then what do we mean by market rate? If our market rate is above where even a two-person household with professional salaries can afford, oh, here comes Sarah. How are we dealing with that, and how are we talking about that?
Mayor and Council, Sarah Dar, Housing Director. If I may lend Adriana some words here. The importance of having market rate units coupled with affordable units is that we need housing in our community for everyone. That our focus, yes, is on units that are designated for sale or rent by certain populations because we know they have inherent trouble affording housing within our community as they do within many other communities. Making sure that we have a connected housing continuum, if you can picture it in your head, the stair steps, starting with absolute homelessness and ending with move-up homeownership as like a purchase of not a second home, but of a different home as you move up the continuum. Our steps are largely disconnected. And so having the availability to have market rate housing that is within reach rather than it being an affordable housing unit designated for a certain population is critical to enable to assist, not really even assist, but have options for people to move into as their life circumstances change or their income increases to be able to move forward. So when we talk about housing, especially when we're talking on a greater context, let's say like the regional planning level, you'll notice we don't always include the word affordable is because we need housing across the entire continuum. And so when we're talking about market rate units and affordable units, market rate units carry a lot of value in our community as well, because we know that the need and desire in our community way outstrips the supply at this moment in time. And so to be able to create that connectivity within the continuum is critical.
So with inflated prices, should we refer to it as something else other than market rate housing? Should we refer to it as like sane pricing versus market rate pricing?
Attainable. I'm working not to giggle. I'm sorry. Mayor and council, in my professional opinion, talking about market rate housing is really actually reflective. Market rate pricing is what the market will bear. And when we have people in our community who are coming in from the outside that are willing to pay those prices, they remain a market-based price. We, as a municipality, of course, do not have the power, let's just go with power, to control the free market of pricing. So I think market-based pricing is really reflective of what we see. And as we see that pricing go up and down depending on how mortgage rates, interest rates fluctuate, et cetera, we see those things impact. So I think we could perhaps talk about, we've had this conversation a couple of times where we talk about attainable housing or workforce housing or whatever it is. And part of the 10-year plan group that talked about these terms came back to discussing market rate units, which are ones that prices impacted by market, and then affordable units that are specifically affordable via either a price or population restriction were really the two categories. If we get into workforce or attainable, or if we use workforce housing, there is an assumption in some groups that we're automatically excluding our elderly or disabled folks who may not be part of the workforce. If we use attainable, we get the questions of what's the difference between affordable and attainable. And remember, the base definition of affordable housing is that a household spends no more than 30% of their gross annual income on housing. You may remember my slide that says who's interested in affordable housing? Everybody's interested in affordable housing. No one wants to spend more than 30% of their income on housing. We'd be happy to consider that, maybe look for some different terms, but these are the ones we've come back to because, one, other communities understand them, folks coming in to develop within our community understand them, and it's not a nebulous, well, by workforce, do they have to be working, that type of thing.
Thank you. I just think it's important to have this conversation every time we talk about housing because there is a fundamental misunderstanding among us and the public often with what type of housing it is that we need in Flagstaff. Thank you.
Mayor, we're happy to have that conversation anytime you like.
I don't see any other questions, so please proceed.
Okay, so now that we've addressed progress toward the overarching goal, let's move on to strategy progress. As mentioned in June, to improve clarity and reduce this, did I go over this slide? Did I? No, okay. I must have done it in my head. and reduce the subjectivity associated with percentage-based metrics, the following status are now being used on all 10-year plan documents. So we have completed, in progress, and not started. On the next slides, we will review 12 strategies relevant to the reporting period, 10 of which have been completed. With 7.5 years remaining and 48 strategies yet to be completed, we remain confident in our trajectory toward achieving our goals. All right. The first 8 strategies we will review on this and the following slide are from a previous implementation plan and have been completed. Create 3.1 allowed Flagstaff voters to approve a bond measure in November of 2022, which secured $20 million to enhance rental and homeownership opportunities. Create 4.3 allowed staff to explore the inclusion of affordable housing as an allowed use in the public facility zone. Tiffany Antol, our phenomenal zoning code manager, came to you late last year with the amendment proposal. Thanks to her efforts in your adoption of a resolution and ordinance, this strategy was completed on March 19th. For Create 5.1, you, Council, approved the funding request in the fiscal year 22-23 budget cycle, and Cascadia Partners was hired. Staff have had extensive participation in the land availability and suitability study and code analysis project, also known as LASCAP, for over a year now. The LASCAP project is expected to be finalized in fiscal year 2025. Create 5.3 was achieved by creating a dedicated team within planning and development services for affordable housing projects. A housing planner position was created and its responsibilities were defined within the interdepartmental staff review process. Moving on to our next slide, Connect 1.2 was accomplished by establishing and hiring a housing navigator, with the position approved as a permanent position starting July 1. Connect 2.3 allowed staff to enhance the diversity of the Housing Commission and Housing Authority Board through the following actions. We added a question to the boards and commissions application to assess how applicants contribute to the city's commitment of diversity. We incorporated template language into staff summaries to encourage you, Council, to consider diversity when making appointments. Providing boards and commissions liaisons with a marketing guide to improve outreach to diverse populations. And lastly, ensuring that the city clerk's office reminds council members to consider diversity when reviewing applications and making appointments. Protect 2.1 was fulfilled by complying with a new Arizona revised statute, which requires council's consideration of housing impact statements with any zoning ordinance or text amendment to determine how the proposed amendment might affect housing construction costs. Protect 3.2 allowed the housing section to update the limited English proficiency plan on September 1st to include new data and further reduce barriers for those with limited English proficiency. The Housing Authority's limited English proficiency plan is regularly updated. The 2 strategies displayed on your screen now were implemented in response to emerging opportunities, although they were not part of a previous implementation plan. Through the adoption of zoning code updates on December 5th, Create 4.1 made it possible to ease infill development and increase flexibility in development options in the planned residential development standards. Protect 3.4 was completed with the launch of a home sharing resources webpage on the city's website. The page provides information on home sharing platforms, rental resources, and links to the Fair Housing webpage. The following 2 strategies from a past implementation plan are still in progress. Preserve 2.2 relies significantly on partnerships with private developers to acquire and rehabilitate existing properties for affordable housing. Proposition 442 allocated $3 million in funding for this purpose, and a framework for this program is expected to be completed in fiscal year 2025. Protect 2.4 involves a public outreach campaign aimed at emphasizing the importance of affordable housing, building support for affordable housing, and addressing community opposition. Since 2022, housing staff have employed various outreach methods, including radio, social media, and local newspapers. Staff will continue to actively seek and utilize community outreach opportunities to advance this strategy in the upcoming year. I'm really excited to announce our upcoming outreach initiative in celebration of Housing America Month, which is next month. For those unfamiliar, Housing America Month is an annual celebration dedicated to affordable housing in the individuals and organizations that support it within our communities. The celebration aims to highlight the vital role of affordable housing programs in fostering healthy, resilient communities, and raises awareness of the urgent need for safe, equitable, and affordable housing. On October 8th, housing staff and our exceptional housing intern, Aiden Rutledge, who made it a point to be here today, who has been instrumental in this year's Housing America Month celebration, will be back for a Housing America Month proclamation. As part of the celebration, we will hold a tabling event at Heritage Square as a part of October's First Friday Art Walk to offer housing resources, free goodies, and they're really good, and an opportunity for community members to engage in this year's Traveling Door Art Project. Yes, we went big with a door this year. A door generously donated by Habitat for Humanity will be painted by a local artist. Her name is Raven Hennigan. She volunteered to paint one side to symbolize the opening of housing opportunities. The other side will be painted at various locations by a diversity of Flagstaff residents to express what housing means to them, how it has affected them, or what their vision of a dream home is. The door's artistic journey will be captured through photographs and posted on social media throughout the month of October. Staff is working with community members currently to identify where the door's permanent home will be after the month-long celebration. Talk about looking for housing, right? Next, I'd like to go over the housing resources and community and legislative efforts portion of the 18-month report. During the reporting period, the housing section and community partners have actively managed programs that support residents across all income levels. Programs administered by the Housing Authority include Clark Homes, Housing Choice Vouchers, and low-income public housing, collectively providing 345 units and over 500 vouchers. The city's community housing programs offer a range of services including affordable housing, down payment assistance, and incentives for developers, among others. Recently, staff have managed over $6 million in funds from various sources, including local bonds, state allocations, and federal resources, each with its own administrative requirements. Additionally, staff have participated extensively in the regional plan update process since November 2022. You'll see some familiar faces on your screen now, and that is because we are going to talk about the legislative efforts section of the 18-month report next, which highlights how legislative actions affect a municipality's capacity to implement significant changes. It is noted that major barriers to affordable housing are rooted in state and federal policies. Staff rely heavily on you, Council, and organizations such as the Arizona Housing Coalition to advocate for legislation that addresses housing affordability challenges at the local, state, and national levels. And this concludes the 18-month report overview. With that, thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions? Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment, I'm kind of thinking back to your last slide. You don't need to go back to it, but legislative efforts. From what I understand, 25% of the homes in this city are owned by people that don't live here. And earlier this night, we heard about a whole neighborhood that's being taken over by short-term rentals. And those are some of the things that we need to work with our legislature about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that 25% figure, is that correct?
I'm going to do one of these, Mayor and Council. That is a number that I would need to look up in the 10-year plan. The Nexus study that was done in 2008 via a study of where property tax bills were sent did quantify that 25% number based on the number of tax bills sent outside of our community. I believe we have an updated number. I still believe it is within the range of 25%. And those are the ones that we're able to identify. It's a particularly difficult thing to identify, especially unoccupied second homes in the community.
And Airbnbs account for about 5%, 6%?
I would have to look at, and I don't see her. We can send an email with that data. It was something that we worked to quantify within the 10-year plan. But again, those numbers, I believe, have been updated somewhat in partnership with economic vitality, especially through the registration requirements put in place.
But Mayor, if you own a rental, your property taxes are going to a different address. So not necessarily it's a second home, correct?
You're saying that they're mailed outside of the city, correct?
That is one of the data methodologies we have utilized in order to identify second homes or unoccupied second homes. There is, through state legislation passed in 1999, which requires registration of multifamily or rental property to have, it's a state mandate that requires owners of rental property to register their properties with the local county recorder's office, but there is no funding or mandate for the county recorder's office to track that. We've met with them several times, and it's a matter of, it's a large lift with not a lot of specificity around it. So there's a couple different methodologies we've utilized over time to work to quantify that, and where the property tax bills go, or the number of property tax bills sent to a specific individual or corporation is one way to quantify that.
So I could live in Phoenix and have rental property up here. So it's not necessarily a second home, is my point.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
And that's the difficulty between an unoccupied second home and having a second home that is utilized as a year-round basis by someone renting it.
Okay. And then in terms of what we're prevented from doing, I wish that the gentleman was still here in the audience, but we're prevented from in any way limiting the number of either second homes or Airbnbs. All we can do is make sure that Airbnbs register with the city. Thank you very much. All right. You have a comment? Go ahead.
Are you talking to me?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Harris and then Councilmember Sweet.
Okay. Thank you all for the presentation. This was really very good, gave me a lot of good information. I just have one question and kind of comment. Are we making sure that we're doing everything within our power to use all of the funds that we have for down payment assistance or rental assistance? And I don't know if you can answer that question. I don't even know if I'm looking for an answer, but I'd like some assurance that we are doing everything within our power and that that money isn't just sitting somewhere that could be used by people. So however you want to address that, it's fine.
Mayor, Council, Justina Costa. I am one of your Assistant Housing Directors. Thank you, Councilmember Harris, for the question. To answer that, I can confidently tell you that currently all of our down payment funding for the community is actually all allocated, and we are now excited to roll out the bond funding for this purpose, and so that'll come to you shortly. But currently we have no more money available. We do have money in our employer-assisted housing program here for the city, but as far as community-wide dollars, those are all allocated.
And all the money for rental assistance is allocated also, correct?
The rental assistance money is administered by Coconino County, and yes, and they do allocate that funding on a monthly basis as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Matthews. I did it again. Councilmember Sweet.
Either way, it works. I just had a couple of comments. I've been meeting with the housing staff on a regular basis, and you all are a small but mighty team, and it's like you're tackling the biggest issue right now in Flagstaff affecting all of us, and doing it with a speed that I can't imagine how you do it all, and with such a small team. I just wanted to thank you. And I've been out in the community a lot talking about housing lately. It's definitely the #1 thing that everyone wants to chat about, rightfully so. And so I have been scouring the website, and I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I would encourage those in the public who have questions on what the city is doing to go to the website. It's really good, and it lines everything out, and it's updated. And I just really think that, you know, if you have questions, feel free to email council, of course, but the website is great and can really set some things straight on there. So thank you.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. This is for Sarah, probably. Just an update. And I know we talked about this, and you probably told me, and I just forgot. But any updates on the workforce housing incentives for employers?
Took me a second. Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. Mayor, Councilmember Matthews. That is when we last spoke about, let me clarify we're on the same page. I'm thinking the same thing you are. One of the requests has been to incorporate the ability for employers working to provide housing opportunities for their employees to be eligible for funds through the incentive policy for affordable housing, yes? Okay, I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing before I gave you an answer and you shook your head at me. So that is one of the elements we're going to be incorporating with the outcomes of the code analysis project and the redo of the incentive policy resulting from that. And so yes, that is coming forth. It will come forth with a package of the incentive policy. You're welcome.
Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, both of you, and well, all three of you, for the presentation today. I just wanted to circle back a little bit. It's not really a question, just a comment, to the conversation that we had earlier about defining terms and all of that. I do think that it's a really important opportunity that we have right now as we're working towards these goals to continuously be putting that information out there and helping to both educate and to some extent, as much as within our power, help to transform people's understandings and interpretations of what we're talking about when we talk about affordability, what we're talking about when we're talking about workforce housing, and so forth. So often, and I remember when I was on the Housing Commission and when we've had some of these conversations before, a lot of that conversation coming up about the importance of people understanding that when we're talking about affordability and our workforce and housing, we're talking about our teachers, we're talking about firefighters, police officers, nurses, healthcare workers, et cetera. We're talking about everyone who's our neighbor and is part of our community. And I think that's so important for us to remember when we're having these conversations, particularly as we're having opportunities to talk about housing opportunities and development that could come to our community, and seeing some of the conflicting information and perspectives that come up when we talk about affordability, and people saying, we all want affordable housing, I just don't want it right here, or these sorts of conversations. It's important to remember that we're talking about our whole community and entire community needs. I think the conversation that Mayor was bringing up earlier was really important about why we need both market and affordable units, because when we don't have those market rate units that are actually in the price points that people can afford, they're buying up or taking up the housing that somebody at a lower price point could probably afford. And then that's driving them into increased needs. So it's a continuation of need up and down that housing spectrum. And I think that's just a really important conversation to continuously be having, and sharing out information in whatever ways that we can to make sure people understand that, and that we're not just talking about buildings, we're talking about our community and our neighbors, our friends, and our families. So thank you very much for this information, and look forward to the information that will come out during October as well.
Great, thank you.
I don't see any additional questions or comments, and I think we've kept you up here long enough. Thank you very much for the great presentation.
I do have an answer for you about their short-term rentals.
Yes.
So back in June, our staff was actually working with Sarah Dector's team on the regional plan, and we, as of 2024, found that there were about 4,007 second homes and 620 short-term rentals. And I'm happy to email that to you as well, but it'll be in the regional plan. 628 as of June.
All right, thank you so much. All right. So now we are down to item number 9, discussion and possible revisions to the nuisance noise ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. If I can tee this up, I'm going to rely on Shannon to help me with the PowerPoint here, and then we'll be turning it over to others. This is going to be a little bit of a collaborative effort. I would like to start with this, which is the background of how we got to this point. Really appreciate this timeline because it provides a nice narrative of when this policy discussion started, what has happened along the way, and why we're back in front of you tonight. And by the way, this is just discussion tonight. There's not an action item associated with this. We would like to get council's input on this and some direction, but it's just a discussion and nothing more. To remind council, I'm not going to go all the way back to what happened in 2020, but more recently, when this topic was in front of council 2 years ago, we had a comprehensive ordinance, a draft ordinance that was presented, and there was a lot of discussion on that. There was a sound study that was conducted and completed, and a lot of forums within which this conversation was occurring. But at this dais, we had discussion on that comprehensive ordinance, and council at that time did not seem to want to move forward with the ordinance as presented, which is fine. I mean, this is part of the policy process. We were asked to convene a task force or an ad hoc group comprised of representatives out of my office, representatives from the Downtown Business Association, a representative from the business community, and a representative of the residents who have advanced concerns or complaints at times about the sound, the noise in some of the downtown areas. We did assemble that task force, and we met several times over the period of a year or two. Out of that, there were no concrete policy suggestions that came forward, but there was an effort as orchestrated through the Downtown Business Alliance to work more closely with the business owners and work with the residents and try to reach some solution, some mitigation of what was concerning to some of the residents there, to try to get on top of this in a more amicable way without utilizing, a comprehensive policy change. Out of that also was, I think, a consensus not to use decibels and to focus more on existing policy and, again, working with the businesses to mitigate the noise concerns. The existing policy is what we're chatting with you about tonight with some proposed amendments, and I will let Mary Ann Sullivan, who has been working with us at our request to help formulate this policy, I'll let her walk you through what revisions are being suggested to the existing policy. Before we do that, Shannon, you just had a slide that talked about some of the comments and concerns. I might touch on these real fast. These are things we're hearing, nothing new here. Council's been, hearing concerns about noise emanating from downtown businesses. Mostly it's attributed to outside music, amplified music. That's the crux of it. So I'll leave this up here for a second and then invite Mary Ann to come up and walk you through some of the changes to the existing ordinance that are being considered.
Mayor, Council, Mary Ann Sullivan, Senior Assistant City Attorney, City of Flagstaff, Legal Advisor to Police and Fire. As you know, I've been part of this process from the beginning, working with council, working with other entities to bring forth some proposals, worked on the prior proposal that as Manager Clifton indicated, didn't kind of sit well with council, so went in a different direction. So this is kind of a different direction as well than what we had been looking at before. The proposal that is before you now for discussion includes kind of revamping this whole section of the city code, because we've added some things throughout the years that's kind of made it a little bit choppy. So part of this proposal is to clean up this entire section if council wants to go forward with this. And section A then of the first section, which would just be the nuisance noise going forward, add some definitions to clarify with regard to businesses, with regard to the differences now being kind of proposed in this version of the ordinance. Section B would modify the current ordinance, proposing new days and times for noise restrictions, proposing a Sunday through Thursday and a Friday through Saturday, changing some times there. As with any proposal that we do bring to council, this is entirely up to you going forward how you want the ordinance to look and or modifications, if any, that you want to have. This is just something that's been proposed based on looking at other ordinances, but also considering the issues that have been brought forth with this particular situation over the years. The language is, instead of going as we had in the prior proposal, the decibel level, this talks about and adding language that prohibits noise that's clearly audible and that disturbs those within the residence or a business that are adjacent to where the noise is coming from. Measurement criteria for purposes of enforcement is proposed to be from the property of the individual who is reporting that they are disturbed, so that for enforcement purposes,
that would be where the officer would go to be able to determine if there is a clearly audible noise that is causing the disturbance. Added to Section C is a list of exemptions that would not qualify under the ordinance for a violation, including such things as necessary emergency construction by the city, snow plows, things like that, so that it's not going to impact things that are required to occur that do unfortunately still cause noise, but not necessarily protracted or extended ones. The proposed drafts makes a violation a civil penalty, so we are not talking about criminal penalties, only civil, which means fines. And you can choose differing amounts for those if you wish. In the proposed ordinance that we have drafted, option A is the same penalties that we have for our party nuisance ordinance. That's also part of the section. Option B is a lower set of fines, and options to increase fines if there are numerous violations from a particular person and or business. Again, within the proposal and the drafts that we provide are just options for you to make those decisions if you wish to go forward with making any sort of amendments to this particular statute. Hearing procedures are built in, so if there is a violation and a civil citation issued, an individual has a right to have a hearing before one of our hearing officers in the municipal court. This is the same that we have in our party nuisance ordinance as well as in the vehicle noise ordinance that we passed most recently. The draft then strikes out previous language in the subsequent two sections and then renumbers the remaining section ordinances. Just that's the cleanup part that I talked about in the beginning. I also have proposed adding a section to the end that requires to all parts of this, to the vehicle noise, to the party nuisance, as well as to any nuisance noise section that would require a person who is contacted and detained for a possible violation of the section that they have to, by law, by this ordinance, provide their truthful name, date of birth, and address so that they can be properly cited for any type of violation. So that's the overview of what's proposed. If you have any particular questions, we can also look at the draft itself. In terms of direction and or discussion for council to have, we've proposed some questions here. Are there hours, days of the week for regulation satisfactory? Or do you want to propose any sort of different time frame? Options for civil penalties that are proposed there. Is there an interest in adding a fourth violation related to any criminal charges? So if there is continued violation that it can escalate, or any sort of impact on any business license. Would you prefer the same civil penalties for businesses and individuals? And whether or not you are in approval of the addition of the failure to provide truthful name that would assist in any sort of enforcement side of this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so council, I will take questions, just clarifying questions, and then I'm going to take public comment, and then we can come back for a discussion. So first, we have Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just a question on, I know you mentioned striking some sections or rephrasing them. I know that a part of the current policy is the potential to waive the civil fees that's specific to participation in the crime-free multi-housing. I'm assuming that's one of the things that would be stricken, or would that just be rephrased?
That's only specific to the nuisance party ordinance, because within the nuisance party ordinance, part of that requires us, when we cite an individual for the nuisance party violation, that we then send notification to the landlord. And then the landlord in that situation can become liable for subsequent violations. But that can be waived if they are participating in crime-free. So that's very specific to the party nuisance ordinance and has nothing to do with the proposal on the nuisance noise ordinance.
Vice Mayor Aslan.
Hi, thank you, Marianne. Can you go back a few slides to I think it's one of the first slides of the changes you're describing. Yes, this is the one I want to talk about. Can you talk to me more about the last bullet point that adds language prohibiting noise that is clearly audible and that disturbs those within a residence or business? And just to frame this, I'm very, very uncomfortable with this fuzzy language. I think this is the crux of the whole thing. I might be willing to compromise and play with Section B and really define some times during the night and during the weekend evenings when it's just inappropriate for these sorts of noises that we're, what we're generally talking about. But that last bullet point seems to me to be a big black hole, a big loophole that could really be abused. Depending on the nature of a disturbance is all in the eye of the beholder, and that could be widely interpreted.
Yes, Vice Mayor, I understand. We took this language, it's very similar to the state law of disorderly conduct, which talks about somebody can, with knowledge or the intent to do so, disturb the peace, quiet of a neighborhood, family, or person by making unreasonable noise. So that's the state law language, which is not very different from this. And that is kind of the default that basically officers could use in this type of situation. That is a Class 1 misdemeanor offense. And
So the interpretation of that would be up to the officer on scene?
somewhat, the clearly audible would be obviously up to the interpretation of the officer. Our officers would have to go to the location, determine if it's clearly audible noise that they can hear in addition to the individual who's reporting it, and would also discuss with them, okay, how are you disturbed by this? Officers often go to these types of calls with just the guidance of our disorderly conduct state statute to basically make those evaluations. Is it really a violation, truly a violation of the state law, and would do the same thing kind of with this.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm really uncomfortable with this. I think that this has the potential to be abused and just to become really confusing for everybody. The problem is I've been on some of these site visits and I've heard the noises that specific residents are complaining about, and I disagree that those noises are disturbing the peace. And just right away, there's already that potential for different interpretations. And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying the resident's wrong. I'm saying it's really a matter of opinion. What constitutes a disturbance. And we've had this conversation before. I don't think we can really drill in on this enough. With the exception of clear, outrageous violations, which I've also heard coming from downtown, usually from the rooftop of the mayor. But beyond that, what's clearly outrageous, maybe that's the threshold I would use in the language. Noise that is clearly outrageous for residents or businesses. And I would leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor. Those are my comments and questions. I look forward to the further discussion.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add to Vice Mayor's comments, I totally agree with what he's saying. I think that just opens up a can of worms. I have the proposed draft noise ordinance up. Before I go to my other question, can you tell me where it talks about that adds that last bullet point that he was
I'm sorry, Councilmember Matthews, that adds
the
what?
bullet point that Vice Mayor Aslan was referring to? Can you show me where it is in the ordinance?
So here it's in subsection B. So B1 talks about the times, and then 2 is during the hours given in 1. It shall be unlawful for any person, business, or principals of a business to make or permit to be made any noise which is clearly audible and disturbs those within a residential unit or another business other than from the place the noise may have originated. And just to kind of for comparison, if you look to the current language. This is the current language that is being, proposed to be stricken. And it basically states during the hours given in A, it shall be unlawful for any person while outdoors or within a residential unit to make or permit any noise which is clearly audible within a residential unit other than from what the noise has originated. So the current language and ordinance basically says if you make a clearly audible noise, it's a violation. So in the proposed change, it adds to that. It's not just clearly audible, but it also has to cause a disturbance.
So my other question is, what is, I was trying to look online to some of the local bars and restaurants that are in this particular area of question, or at least getting the attention. What's the latest, these bars over the weekend? Like, do they close at 12, 1, 2?
I don't know that for sure. I think there might be some people present who can answer that question for you. I think legally they're allowed to be open until 1, but I'm not familiar exactly with that.
And the reason for this question is when you look at when they have to stop making noise, if it's 2 hours before they close, that seems problematic. You might as well just say 8 o'clock at night. So I'll let them, when they come up to speak, if they could answer that, that would be great. I know when my kids are up here from Phoenix, they don't get home at 12:30.
Councilmember Sweet, did you have a question?
I guess I just had a comment kind of piggybacking on what's being said. My thought is the bars, I believe, can be open until 2. So if we're designating at midnight, there can't be any noise. I'm just thinking when I was out at midnight, which hasn't been for a long time, but I'm leaving the bar, let's say at 12:31, maybe I'm making noise leaving the bar that someone can hear. I'm not being that loud, but maybe I'm loud enough. So that's one thought, and I like this discussion, and we'll have more of it. My question, too, is what is the burden that you're seeing, or what do you anticipate on our police? Like, how are we going to enforce this? What have we been doing thus far? How much time does it take? And what do you think this will impact?
Thus far, the police are still responding to these calls, regardless of the current ordinance or a new proposed ordinance. So it's still going to be an issue for law enforcement to have to respond to calls that people are disturbed by whatever it is they're disturbed by. The current ordinance and how it's written really doesn't give the officer much ability to do much about it. And so previously, when we proposed the more decibel thing, the hope there was at least going to be maybe an objective line that would be easier to enforce for both parties to know what that might be. With this proposal, like I said, we're taking what's currently here, which is basically any noise made during this time, which could be a violation, and adding some additional language so it's not just a noise, as in the person who's leaving the bar making that noise. It would be more of, maybe that person makes a noise where they're leaving, but then they get in an Uber, hopefully, or something else and go home, and then the noise isn't long or protracted, causing a disturbance for, a long time that might cause somebody to call in. So in terms of the impact on whether law enforcement would, be dealing more with this with an ordinance, I'm not sure it would really have much of an impact because we're still dealing with the calls regardless.
Thank you, and I thought of my other question. When we're looking at the fines, there's no warning. It just goes right into a fine schedule.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if there's a reason behind that.
No, if council would like a warning to be made, for a first-time violation, that is a possibility.
All right, I am going to take public comment. First up, we have Craig Bouchard.
6 a.m. till 2 a.m. They can consume till 2:30. We do not have to close if we're not serving alcohol, if that helps you. Okay, let's go. Good afternoon, Council. We find ourselves here again. I think some corrections need to be made to the narrative offered in the presentation. A few missing points. Myself and a neighbor have been the catalyst for this whole thing. I'm abbreviating the trials and tribulations here because of my time limits, but ultimately my employee was cited for a non-applicable statute. At least that's what the judge said when she dismissed the case. So we have found ourselves trying to craft an ordinance here that satisfies the neighbors. Mind you, I spent $30,000 of my own money defending that employee in subsequent research. What is also missing is that the first draft of this proposed ordinance, drafted by Ms. Sullivan and team, had decibel levels so low they were absurd. So absurd that I wore a decibel meter here to this council meeting, like Flavor Flav, to a city to show that the city council meeting itself exceeded the recommended decibels in the ordinance. What also needs to be more context is that the city paid $30,000. I have the receipt for a study that showed the noise downtown was consistent with the noise of a typical urban downtown. In said report, the contractor company made recommendations for decibel limits and processes and measures for comparative purposes. Flag PD bought decibel meters, sent people to training. I believe the business community was accepting of using a standard that drew ire from across the table when neighbors learned that they lived in the same zoning as the business they opposed and would not get the level of silence they desired. As my time runs out, I offer some thoughts up to you. This committee was not inclusive. I own 2 businesses and a building downtown and was never once solicited for input. I'm at a loss to find another business owner that was involved besides one. I've called many. When I once asked, do we really have a problem that we need to solve for the whole city or just a small number of people, I was rebuffed by the former police chief that there were 472 noise complaints in 6 months. I did what anyone wanting to validate the data would do. I pulled the data. I paid several $100s to get the copies of these supposed complaints. Turns out only 14 of them were noise, 6 being downtown.
My name is Corey Moore, and I'm the former pastor of Harbor Chapel AME Church at Flagstaff, Arizona.
Sorry.
I'm currently pastoring that Holy Trinity Community AME.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. 6 downtown. I made a heat map. I'm more than happy to reshare it. Maybe we should pull the data again and validate it. Next, look at the city sales tax collections. There's clearly a trend going on. We read about business failings with shock. Well, it shouldn't be a shock. The enormous pressures we get put on us is continuous. This is just another subjective regulation. Everyone with a patio or open windows is subject to this. Pay and Take, Dark Sky, Lumberyard, Namarco's, Orpheum's, patios on downtown. Not quite the, will all be affected by this. A silent downtown is a dead downtown, not quite the destination that tourists will be clamoring to. Look at your falling tax revenue and predict what this compound effect will possibly be. If we are going to do this, language so broad as it should be unlawful for any person, business, or principles of business to make a permit to be made any such noise that is clearly audible and disturbs those within a residential unit or another business is so subjective. Striking phrases, volume of background noise, whether the nature of the noise is usual or unusual, is ridiculous. This is the equivalent of you're speeding because someone thinks you're going too fast. Go back to what the data showed, use the recommendations we all paid for, and be done with this. Language such as this, so broad in this ordinance, may not even stand up in court. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Dyer.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Matthew Dyer. I'm the owner of Southside Tavern. It's in 117 South San Francisco Street. I'm no stranger to noise complaints. I've gotten a couple over the years, and from my experience, a lot of it has been to the language, just the audible language out there. I know the Vice Mayor already touched on it, but that last bullet point on that slide really bothered me. Because where do we stop with that? It gets really fuzzy, and at that point, it kind of seems like we beat on people's First Amendment rights. And I just think it's a whole that it's just going to suck up resources, and it's going to tear the community apart by having people call on each other all the time. People call on me, and it's going to hurt more and more businesses. Craig already touched on a lot of the stuff I wanted to touch on as well. So I wanted to also talk about the comments and concerns that were on the slide. I noticed that it said, 200 people versus a couple residents. My bar isn't just, us serving 200 people. I support staff and their families. I have staff of 12. They're affected by this as well. Myself included, this is my dream. And taking away that revenue on the weekends between the hours of midnight and 2 really would do a number on us. Sorry, I'm not a good public speaker. You know, I have 4 businesses partnered with me as well, local small businesses. It's going to hurt them if we're not able to help them out as well. We're also doing a fundraiser for a 4-year-old with brain cancer tomorrow. There's a lot more that the bar does than just create noise on the weekends. If you have to make a new noise ordinance, I do recommend decibel readings because that at least gives us something, gives us some accountability. We can at least measure it, know if we're being too loud, rather than, hey, I heard someone scream outside, let's call the cops. And then next thing you know, it's taking away from their time, their resources, and it just doesn't do any good. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. All right, council, that was oh, we have online public comment too. Excuse me, sorry.
Mayor and council, our first commenter is going to be Blake Witten. Blake, you may go ahead and address Mayor and council.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to share information with the council, which really is at the intersection, excuse me, between available housing in Flagstaff and consideration of the noise ordinance. I own a small home on the south side on Benton Avenue. First moved into the home in 1982 as an NAU student, so I have 42 years association with this small home and with the south side. But more to the point, I moved away from Flagstaff in 1988 and have successfully rented my little home for the 35 years since. The main thing I want to share with you is something that is quite alarming to me. I've had 35 years of successful renting, but I lost my last tenant in December of last year due to the noise problem with the Southside Tavern. And in the 9 months since, I have been unable to rent my house. I have felt obligated to notify prospective renters that we have had some noise difficulties in the neighborhood and have invited those renters who stop by to see my house, who love my house, but who stop by on the weekends to see what the noise is actually like. I've probably had 20 prospective renters over the past 9 months. All of them have passed. So for me personally, I calculate that I have lost $20,000 in between extra bills that I've had trying to rent my house and then the lost rental income. And from an economic point of view, if I can't rent my house, the future cash value or cash flow is zero. And then that means that, excuse me, the value of my 40-year investment also goes to zero. My house was informally appraised by a realtor friend of mine based on comps sold in the neighborhood as $400,000. So that's a huge hit to me. I'm just a middle-class American family. This is a huge part of my investment. Also, the noise problem is removing the housing stock from our neighborhood, which affects the affordable housing in Flagstaff. Just one personal story. My most recent prospect was this last weekend. He's a male nurse who works at the hospital, saw my house, loved my house, stopped by the neighborhood at 12 a.m. on last Friday night and couldn't believe the noise between the crowd on the patio and the bass coming out of the structure, and he turned it down. So at this point, after 9 months, I'm about at the point to try to give up renting my house, which puts me in a huge quandary. I just want to mention that I'm pro-local business. We used to have a restaurant called the Cafe Olay, which was open with a patio across the alley from where my house is just right across the alley from the Southside
Your
Mart.
3 minutes are up. Thank you. Do we have another public commenter?
Yes, Mayor, we have Candace Ryan. Candace, you may go ahead and address Mayor and council. Candace Ryan, you may go ahead and address Mayor and council. Candace, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself and address Mayor and Council.
Mayor, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Let me see if we can try to get her reconnected and come back. Just one moment.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take questions and comments from council, but we'll break in if Candace is able.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
I'm here. Can you
there
hear-
she is.
I'm sorry, I had some technical issues. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor. I'm here to support the noise ordinance changes that have been proposed today. This issue started over 6 years ago. Before purchasing our home in 2016, we did our due diligence in walking the alley several times at night and checking the zoning for the area. The Southside Tavern was a newer establishment and ran like most taverns, food, some live music on occasion. We had no issues. However, about a year later, the business model had changed into more of a nightclub establishment with events 4 to 5 days a week, electronic dance music until 2 a.m. on several nights, loud crowd noise, and it's been the same ever since. My 6-year-old has woken up crying and exhausted the next day more times than I can count from the music and bass, which is coming from the inside of the bar sometimes, not just outside, as well as the screams from the crowd. Myself, my husband, and neighbors have lost sleep. The ability to enjoy our outdoor spaces has affected our work and our overall quality of life, not to mention being bullied by previous owners. Individuals on WC Riles have moved due to the noise from another neighboring establishment on South San Francisco. A noise ordinance should be in effect, I believe, 24 hours a day. Most of us don't go to sleep at 11 p.m. My daughter sure does not. Let us not forget this is for the community at large. Our home is well over 100 years old and was there before the patio was enclosed, before subwoofers and electronic dance music. Due to the format of these meetings and being in a town where many people work more than one job, it's challenging to be here in person. I asked council to check your emails for those who could not be here today. And if you were on council when this first started, look back in your emails 4, 5, and 6 years ago. We've been more than patient. It's felt the fear of holding business accountable has left us residents in the dust. Most businesses do not create noises, either due to their location or create nuisances, I should say, due to their location and or their business model. And let us not forget the value of our residents to the community. This issue is driving out good people who are invested in the neighborhood. And it's interesting to come off the heels of the housing conversation, as a lot of these have turned in, or at least 2, I can say, into an Airbnb since having to relocate because of the noise. We've kept recordings to show that we're not being unreasonable. As it was mentioned before, the language in audible is in the state law, so it still can be applied. I ask that you please look into this. This has been going on for too long for us over on this side, as well as other areas. And keep in mind, this isn't just for business to residents, resident to resident. We all need some sort of protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Candace. I do want to assure you that we have been looking into this. City staff have been grappling with this for a very long time. Plenty of resources have gone towards it, and I hope we can get closer to a resolution here. I can see both perspectives. Councilmember McCarthy, I want to, I want to thank you. I understand that your instinct to revisit this and get some closure, so to speak, before you step down from council. I know this is an issue that you have championed, and you have had good cause. I think your arguments are sound. I think it's reasonable for you, for somebody, for anybody, to take the position of wanting less noise downtown. I also think it's reasonable to want our downtown to be vibrant. And that would require at least the slow evolution of downtown residents and downtown businesses learning to coexist. Anyway, so I kind of have a question for Mary Ann. It's just a clarification. It was amusing to me. It sounds like the suggested change in language that's being proposed today on that bullet point is actually more stringent than what's already on out there. And if my understanding on that is incorrect, please correct my thinking, but it seems like I'm actually, in favor of tinkering with that language a little bit more, to make it clearer and to make it perhaps a little bit more restrictive in terms of the ability to launch a complaint. But when a complaint is warranted, it should be addressed. And so kind of what I'm thinking, we have this amazing phrase in our, founding documents about beyond a reasonable doubt. I wonder if we can insert that in there somewhere, giving the officer the leeway to, I mean, it works in all other aspects of law. If if someone's being loud in some way beyond a reasonable doubt, then they should be able to be cited. And that's a high bar, and I think it's a high bar on purpose. So that's kind of where I'm thinking. I'm not married to the language precisely, but that's just where I'm going with this. Marianne, feel free to comment, but if I was right, you can be brief and just say that is correct. I look forward to further conversation.
So to address your comment, so beyond a reasonable doubt is a burden of proof. It is the highest burden of proof that is used to find somebody guilty in a criminal court of law. To arrest an individual, officers only need probable cause, which is a very low standard. For civil violations such as what's proposed here, the standard is the preponderance of the evidence. So the preponderance of the evidence must show that an individual is in violation of whatever the civil violation is. That goes for speeding violations, that goes for our party nuisance, our other, civil violations that we have, the marijuana ordinances, things like that. So to put a criminal burden of proof in a civil statute would be, for purposes of just citation, would be very unusual and not something that the courts would be used to or the officers would be used to either. So
well, that's why I'm not a lawyer. I'm glad you're there, Marianne, to quickly clarify that. But I think you understand the spirit of what I'm getting at. I'm willing to make an amendment there, but I want to make it I want to give the officer as much discretion as necessary to get the job done.
And officers have that already. I mean, even with the state statute that they routinely enforce, I mean, they do get called not to just, and Mr. Bouchard, showed that with his public records request for requesting all disorderly conduct, reports that were generated. There are many things that kind of violate that state statute, not just noise. And so every time an officer goes, not to just a disorderly conduct call, but any type of call that they're dispatched to, they have, and in most cases, discretion. I was just training today at our police academy with our brand new recruits, discussing with them this idea of their discretion in terms of, this sometimes is what the law says you can do, but you also need to ask yourself what you should be doing. And so that is something that on every single call an officer goes to that they're dealing with. And with the spirit of what you're talking about, we can also, do training with the officers in terms of, this, whatever ordinance, if the council decides to pass one, that the spirit behind that and basically the legislative intent that you all may have is that it apply in various serious situations.
It's a high bar. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And then one last question about the time. I do think 10 p.m. is a little early for the weekdays. And 12 a.m. is a little early for the weekend. What are the existing rules on that? Remind me.
The existing ordinance that's in place right now actually says Monday through Friday, which is kind of odd. It splits the Friday and Saturday, 12 a.m. to 6, and then Saturday, Sunday, 1 to 7.
Well, I'm more in favor with returning to that, with the exception that we make the split on Thursday. I think you have my direction, Marianne. I hope I've been clear enough for what is a not very, cut and dry conversation. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you. I actually have a couple of questions for Craig and Matthew, if they can come up. And while you're coming up, I want to, let's see, I think it was like 20 years ago, I lived on the corner of Butler and San Francisco, and that was before Southside Tavern was in business, and it was loud back then. I mean, I had sleepless nights, I had to wear earplugs, but moving there, I knew I was going to be enduring that. And I sympathize with Candace. I've been to the home. I did some studies out there. And I don't know what the right solution is, but I am hoping that we can all get there tonight. My questions are, Craig, I came out and we talked about mitigation efforts that you were doing, and that was a while ago. Can you restate those and tell me if there's been any additional mitigations that you've done since?
Yeah, just to clarify the relationship too. I owned the business. I bought the building. I sold the business to Matt. So during my tenure of running and owning the business, we put timers on the outdoor speakers as in per agreement with Sergeant Sapp. He was Sergeant Sapp back then, now he's Lieutenant. We put timers on the speakers, turn off at 10 o'clock. We put an auto closer on the back door. We did, through my attorneys, reach out and offer air conditioning to the tenant, the homeowner behind me. Well, I feel like there's something I'm missing here. Decibel readings. We put a decibel reader in the back. We did several things like that. Geez, I wasn't prepared and have all those in mind. And when I sold the business part of it to Matt, and it's in our lease, he actually has continued those, I believe.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I also, after talking with one of the officers, I don't remember which one, I added an extra security in the back to make sure that the door is always being closed so no one's holding it open. So I even added in an additional effort that way.
Okay, and have you heard from the residents around there? Has that helped, all those mitigation efforts? Have they helped anything?
Yeah. I've left letters on their doors, and I've emailed and stuff. I even offered to rent that gentleman's place from him because he said he couldn't rent it. So, I mean, I would love to live there, but I offered to do that as well. So I've been trying to get involved and make steps to make it more cohesive. But like I said, at the end of the day, it is a bar, and I can't really stop people from talking.
So Matt, can you tell me what communication or how you've reached out? I know you left some letters, but have you worked with the residents surrounding your business in other ways to keep the communication going and in a positive way?
I mean, I did call and talk to a gentleman renting his house, but I left letters on every doorstep around there with all my information, and I left my phone number on there, and I told them if there was ever a complaint or if there was anything that I could do that they could call me, but no one really has reached out to me. The only people I hear from are the officers when they call in the complaints, and I come out there right away and I'll turn down the volume.
So I just have a couple of thoughts. You know, I'm a small business owner, but I also have a family, so I understand, Candace, when you say your kiddo doesn't get to sleep and that's really hard. I totally understand. But I'm finding it hard to penalize the business for operating. And I think tonight's an important discussion because we are looking at adding housing into our downtown. So this is not only about the Southside Tavern and about residents on the south side. This is going to affect all of our small businesses, all of our downtown corridor and beyond. So I just want us to keep that in mind as we're talking. This is bigger than just this one business and a couple of houses. This is going to impact all of the businesses who are already struggling. It's day to day, and I don't want to push them out And I'm really hoping that we can come to a compromise between honoring what the residents need, but honoring that our businesses need to operate. And it may not be an easy compromise, but we are talking about adding housing into downtown. So this is a bigger issue than what we're talking about immediately.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so where do I start? And I hope that my colleagues can bear with me for a little while. Typically, I'm usually pretty brief, but I think I'm going to take a little bit of time tonight, and so I'm asking you to please bear with me. First of all, let me just kind of respond to a couple of things that I've heard. We're going to be adding housing to the downtown area, but when you go across the tracks, to the north side, that's probably where we're going to be adding housing. It's probably going to be further down. Most of those shops are going to close up at 9 or 10 o'clock. And so that's not going to be a real issue, I don't believe. I could be totally wrong. But let me just go back for a minute and just clarify. The South Side neighborhood is one of the oldest continuously occupied neighborhoods in the city. And those homes were there before a lot of the businesses, at least the businesses like that. The Southside Tavern, I'm not trying to pull anybody out, nor am I going to condemn anybody for running a business. You absolutely have the right to run a business, absolutely have the right to make a profit. But when I go to a bar and if the music is too loud and I can't hear my friends, we pretty much end up leaving, because one of the reasons that we go to the bar is that we want to be together, socialize, maybe have a few drinks. And so if you're defeating the purpose of going to a bar to be with your friends, because every time the music gets louder, I have to scream louder in order for my friends to hear me. I don't know what the answer is to this, but I think that we're all smarter than the average bear and that we should be able to figure this out. I don't think that it's appropriate for us to condemn people for living where they live. That may be all that they can do at this point in time. And like Councilmember Sweet said, you know, she moved there knowing that she was going to be across from a bar. But, you know, as a college student, I dealt with a whole lot that I did not deal with as a single mom with a 15-month-old when I was in grad school. And so I think that we just have to think about what it is that we're willing to give. What is it worth to us? What will the business owners give? What will the residents give? Everybody's going to have to give something. And unfortunately, people don't want to give anything. But that's not going to work if that's how we're thinking. If nobody wants to come to the table and give up something and figure it out, then this is not going to work. We're just wasting our time. And the last thing that I'm going to say is that language is strong and it's powerful, and people oftentimes say things in the heat of the moment that they would not say otherwise. So I'm going to caution us to think about our language before we speak. Think about those folks who we're talking to, and think about how we might be good neighbors to all of us. And so I may have other comments later, but right now I think I'm going to stop right there. So thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll ask Matt and Craig, or Matt, a couple of questions for clarification. And I do want to thank Craig and Matt for your mitigation efforts. It really shows that you're trying to, answer the concerns and do what you can as a bar. I was a business consultant for several restaurants in Prescott when I did my consulting, and I'm just going to throw this out there because I thought it was very funny. This one restaurant bar was in a neighborhood close by, And they had a guy, and I know you won't, I'm not suggesting you do this, but I just wanted to share it with you. They handed out earphones, and the music was in the dancers' ears. And it was funny to watch because people, I think there was even different kinds of music being played, and so you're like, what the heck is going on? You couldn't hear it if you were standing right next to it. They had it right here, and so it was quite an inventive, innovative way to bring music into a neighborhood that had to be quiet. I just wanted to share that. You said that you have a decibel meter reader out back. What is that? What is it set to? Does it give you an alarm if it goes? My phone does this, my watch, and when my Aussie barks and it hurts my ears, it's like, it just went over 30 decibels and it's really painful.
Yeah, so the decibel reader I have, it's just a handheld one, and I'll go out behind the patio, and I'll wait and measure it when the door's open and when it's not, and I'll record it, and if it's usually like above 60, I'll turn down the music, but it usually never gets that high. Usually it's somewhere between 30 to 50 outside. And the loudest part is usually the people talking. So it's usually not the music that we get the complaints about, but I do have videos and recordings. When the train comes by, it reads larger decibels than my bar does.
So does the music stop at 1 or 2 or
Yep.
midnight?
It's on a timer, automatically turns off at 2.
At 2, okay.
Yeah, the patio's 10. So I actually adjusted that when I first started getting these complaints. I have it turned off at 9 now, so I actually did change that. It turns off at 9, not 10 now.
And when the music's off in the patio and the doors close, what is the decibels when the music's still playing?
Well, the volume, the loudest hours are usually between 12 to 2. But like I said, before that, you can hardly hear it at all. And then when you go outside, it's anywhere from 30 to 50. But it's hard to get a proper reading because the voices are what is creating the noise. So if someone yells, the decibel reading will change. So it's hard to get like a super accurate, but it's never below what I know that the decibel, it was what was it, like 60 or something was the, I don't know, I'm gonna stop talking, I can't think of it. I know that there was a proposed decibel level. I'm thinking it might have been 60 or so.
Yeah, I mean, the guideline I gave Matt, and again, part of my 3-minute, the city paid $30,000 for a study. I have the receipt. It put some guidelines in there, so we used those. And that's what I gave him as, this is probably what was reasonable as what the outline of that study came up to. So 65 dB is what the study recommended in our mixed use. So, and as Matt stated, one of the hardest things is people talk. It's just reality. And if we all get in a room and we all start talking, the volume is going to escalate because I'm talking to you and then she's trying to talk to him. It becomes this race, if you will. And there's not much you can do about that when you have a gathering of people. So, unfortunate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my other questions are with Mary Ann. So getting back to the proposed ordinance, I have some issues with section B, number 2, when it says that it shall be unlawful for any person, business, or principals of a business to make or permit to be made any noise which is clearly audible. It's like, well, clearly audible could just be, you can hear me right now, right? As well as disturbs those within a residential unit. So that seems, as the Vice Mayor mentioned earlier, that could just really let the speed dial go on 911 to say, okay, I can clearly hear this, and it's disturbing me, so it meets the ordinance. So I think that if we could get more clear language in that to where it's not so vague. I mean, I'm clearly audible right now, and it may be disturbing to you. I'm talking to you. So then I would be in violation. So I just, and maybe I'm making it too simplified, but it just seems like if residents are you know, looking at the new ordinance and like, oh, see, right here, this meets this, I'm gonna call 911. So I think we should clear that up. And then also number 3, the measurement criteria, whether the noise is clearly audible, again, shall be determined from the property of the individual who's reporting they are disturbed by the noise. Again, you know, in the eyes of the beholder, it's similar to when we were talking about pickleball and the noise. That just seems like, or Airbnbs, you know, where people were saying, well, I can complain if they're licensed. Well, we have some people that are just habitual complainers about stuff. So it just opens, that language there just makes me feel like we're just opening up a bunch of problems to where this is not going to get resolved because we've stated it like this. And so, you know, people that are being disturbed on it, and we want to be sensitive to that and we want to come to a resolution, but they're going to say it's in the ordinance, so I'm within my rights, right? And everybody has a right for, you know, to a peaceful, you know, living environment. But I think this just kind of opens the door to people that, you know, right now it's a very sensitive conversation, wanting resolution. So I'd like to see a lot of that language changed and tightened up to make it more like disturbing, or, you know, think it's the thunder outside or something.
Okay, within the ordinance, there is a definition of what is clearly audible that is already kind of in the current statute. We added some additional clarification there. You know, and so what the officer would have to do is if they get a call, they have to go then to the property. If they can't hear it and it's not clearly audible, then it's not a violation.
So I scrolled up to that and it says can be plainly heard.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So, I mean, that doesn't mean it's disturbing.
Correct, and that's just one part of the definition. So,
I know we're not making a definite decision tonight,
Correct.
but I'd really like to see some more definitive language just to not open up the opportunity for this to be an ongoing discussion. If we can tighten it up, the language.
Do you have any suggestion of what you mean by tighten it up? Because I'm having trouble kind of conceptualizing what you're specifically
Well, I
looking
think
for.
just being able to hear something is not reasonable to say that that's a noise complaint. You know, it's not, does not equate to a noise complaint. So when you hear something and you just hear it, you're hearing it. But if it's disturbing, you know, like the bass, you know, you can feel your walls vibrating and stuff. And maybe that can be, in these older homes, that could be felt at 30 decibels. I don't know, but just making some clarification on what being able to hear the noise means. And as Matt was saying, you know, people standing outside in the front or in the lounge and they're just talking, you know, maybe it's music that we, you know, put more of a tighter criteria on, you know, after midnight or something. I don't know, but the way it's presented now just seems to not really get us where we want to be. We'll be back here discussing that because we're still going to get complaints.
So in terms of the proposed difference, it changes it from just being clearly audible, which is what is in the current, to being clearly audible and disturbing. So you have to have both under this proposal. So this goes more than what we currently have. In terms of regulating specifically music versus voices, I don't think would necessarily be appropriate in an ordinance. And I think, you know, Councilmember Harris kind of pointed out, if she goes somewhere where there's loud music and they have to yell over the music, then the voices are louder. So I guess I can try and come up with something that would be more than what this is, but I'm also having a hard
Or
time.
maybe more of a definition of who determines if it's disturbing.
And we can do that. There are some ordinances who who put basically the onus on law enforcement, which I'm not really, I don't want them to be in the middle of this. And unfortunately, they have been in the middle of this kind of dispute all along. Even though that there's been, attempts, by the businesses to address the residents directly, at this point, that's not what, is resolving the issue. They're calling law enforcement are responding and, trying to mediate this issue. If there was a different tool for them to use, that could be helpful for them.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
And I appreciate it, Marianne. Just as a follow-up, I know that this language is difficult to wrestle with. I'm glad Marianne pointed out the two requirements for it to be something that could be cited. One of the points that she indicated earlier, or pointed to earlier, was the fact that under disorderly conduct 2904 of the criminal code, which is a state statute, the word reasonable is in there. And is that a word that you would like to see? That's something
unreasonable.
Unreasonable.
Statute says
but
unreasonable.
It makes unreasonable noise. That's one of the things that I think you're asking for, and I just want to clarify so that we're all on the same page. Again, what's reasonable and what's unreasonable? Officers have been asked to determine this for decades. That's an old law. So it's something that our police department has been dealing with for a long time. Just wanted to make sure everyone was aware.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you giving me a minute here. I'd just like to point out that one of the big differences between this ordinance and the existing, the proposal and the existing ordinance is where you measure it. The existing ordinance requires a policeman to come inside someone's house to make a determination. Well, oftentimes a person will call and the policeman might not get there for an hour. But even if he does, oftentimes these people have children that are trying to sleep, and it's extremely intrusive to have a policeman come into your house, especially when you have children. And so this says basically at the property line of the person that's being affected. We can change that maybe to the front door, the front window or something. There's room for compromise here. But to have a policeman come inside the house is completely ridiculous. The other thing is a lot of ordinances in other cities, they measure it at the property line of the noise source. Well, this is actually a lot more forgiving to the noise source because it may be that the noise is audible and unreasonable at the noise source, but we're going to measure it at the affected property, which is going to be lower because with distance, the noise level goes down. So I'd like to say that even with the mitigations that the bar, and that's only one example of, have done, that the noise still prevents children and adults from sleeping in their own bedroom. I know of 5 residences that have moved because they can't handle the noise there. Blake called in before, and he said that the person living in back of the Southside Tavern, his renter moved because of the noise. And it's, some people think, well, this is, got to let businesses go out and be successful. Well, renting your house is a business too. So in effect, we have one business against another business. I'll also point out that the yoga center used to have nighttime yoga sessions, but they can't do that anymore because of the noise. So there's another example of one business interfering with the legitimate business of a different business. I'd like to also point out that I love bars. I was single for 11 years, and I was out dancing like 3 or 4 nights a week, in loud bars. But they were indoor bars, and we weren't causing any disturbance to anyone else. So the issue isn't the data. You saw a pile of papers there that was police reports. That bar owner shared that with council a few years ago, and I went through that data. And we don't have a problem in the downtown area. By downtown, I mean, you know, north of the tracks. The issue is with these patio bars that are in the residential area. And the current zoning of the south side is either residential or community commercial. And CC, community commercial, if you read the ordinance, I have it right here if anybody's interested, it makes it extremely clear that any commercial activities in the CC zone have to be compatible with residential. And when people can't sleep in their own house, that isn't compatibility. I'd also like to, there's people have made arguments, well, people shouldn't have moved there knowing that there was bar noise. Well, who came first? Candace, I know from talking to her, she lived in her house for a couple years before there was a noise issue. So who came first? The residences came first, and then the bar noise moved in after the fact. So I just also want to point out that there's nothing personal about this. The outcome of this will have no impact on my backyard. I don't have any threat of any of this kind of problem in my neighborhood. It's not personal, it's just that I have empathy for people that can't sleep in their own house, they can't watch TV, they can't watch videos because of the noise issues. So there's really two issues here. The first issue is, do we need to resolve this? I answer yes. The second question is, how do we resolve this? And I think there's some room for compromise. And a few of those things have been alluded to here. And I have some other ideas for compromise. One example is that the south side is zoned CC, community commercial, as I pointed out. But the bars in downtown, they're not, based on the data that I reviewed from the bar owner, there's not an issue downtown. But on the other hand, we do have things like Heritage Square and the Flagstaff Brew, I think it's called. They're in a different zone. They're in a central business zone. So one possibility is that this new ordinance have some differences for central business versus community commercial. So I think there's maybe some compromise on the hours that the ordinance applies. I think in a residential area, it should apply 24/7. In a central business area, maybe something like after midnight or whatever. We can come back to that if there's interest in doing that. And I have some thoughts about penalties, and I don't know if we need to get into those details now. But I very strongly believe that we need to do something. I'm open-minded to some compromise. I was fine with the alternate way of using a sound meter or whatever and coming up with it. But council didn't like that for a bunch of reasons. Maybe because they don't know what a decibel is. Maybe they don't have a gut feel for what a decibel is. Well, and I understand that. I'm an engineer, so I have a better feeling for those type of things. But I think it's pretty obvious that my opinion is we need to move forward with this. There is room for compromise. There is room for tweaking some of the language here and there, but we have to do this. People can't sleep in their own house. People are selling their houses because they can't live there. it's clear cut, you know, in my mind. What gives one person a right to steal the rights of another person by stealing their peace and quiet? That's a reasonable part of, you know, owning a property is a bundle of sticks, as they taught me in grad school. And one of those sticks is peace and quiet in your own house. And I'm not willing to give that up. It isn't for me, it's for other people in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember House?
Thank you. Marianne, are you able to pull back up the slide that was asking for council direction or comments?
Yes.
And while you're doing that, I'll just say the main comment that I had was, first of all, appreciation to everyone that came out tonight that spoke with us, the people that have written in, the people that called in. I think it's really important and telling that we hear the different sides of this concern and the differences that are coming up with this. It is not an easy question that we're facing here, and it's not an easy thing to answer or come up with the best language for. Obviously, we've seen that there are challenges in that as well. One of the things that I noted was just taking some issue with the language that said, and we've talked about it kind of ad nauseum, so I won't go too far into it, but just the reference to a violation for someone making any noise, and just thinking maybe that's a little too broad. What I wrote down was for it to be a violation to make sustained and pervasive noise that causes an unreasonable disturbance of the peaceful enjoyment of whatever, whether it's a personal property or something else. Can you repeat that? I can send it to you. And I think it's helpful. I was very grateful when Mr. Solomon brought up that language elsewhere, because there's a couple of things at play there that I think that sort of language change addresses. It's taking it away from being any noise. I think that's maybe a little bit too broad, but the idea of there being that sustained, pervasive noise that's causing a disturbance, I think is important. And also the language of causing an unreasonable disturbance, because I think I grew up in Pennsylvania. I lived right across from downtown Harrisburg and right next to people that would have parties all through the night. And my definition of what was a reasonable amount of noise, because I also lived right across from the train station, so there was a difference in definition that had to be put into the equation. Was it unreasonable for a train to go by? No. Was it unreasonable for the next door neighbors to be playing loud music at 4:30 in the morning? Probably. Is it unreasonable for me to be able to hear the bars from downtown across the bridge? That was a little bit debatable because of the way that sound travels. It wasn't necessarily that it was so loud as much as it was in kind of an echo chamber, and so the sound just kind of reverberated. So I think the communication of this is also really important for that collaborativeness between the businesses themselves, the residents there, and coming to that mutual understanding of what's being talked about here is going to be very important. And recognizing that everyone has to come to the table with that willingness to both compromise, hear each other out, and exercise reason. I hate to put it that way because it sounds very dismissive, but I think what I'm trying to say is just recognize that this is a situation that's calling for compromise on all sides. And so folks have to be able and willing to come to the table with that willingness to compromise. If everything that's suggested is wrong, then we're never going to get anywhere. That's what I mean by that. So it's not that I'm saying that anyone has been unreasonable in these conversations. I deeply empathize with both the residents in this situation and the business owners in this situation. I think what's really important is that recognizing that whatever compromise comes up with, the best one is going to be one that doesn't make anybody 100% happy, but it gives and takes on both sides of what's being put forward. So I'm hopeful that with some of those tweaks to language, that will be helpful. In terms of the hours and the days for the regulation, I agree with Vice Mayor in terms of shifting from Monday through Friday to Monday through Thursday, and then including Friday through Sunday as a category. I think we do need to look at the hours because of knowing that those businesses can be open until 2. I wouldn't want to infringe on their rights as business owners by limiting their ability to function to hours that are outside of what they're allowed. I would like to see more language for a warning before the implementation of civil penalties, or at least strengthening, and I know you made very clear, Mary Ann, that I was looking at the wrong section when I was talking about the multifamily, but I do think that that's an important option that exists there for a business owner or a person who's found to be in violation to have that opportunity to appeal in one way or another without necessarily getting that penalty right away. I don't know, it looks like you're thinking something there, so I'll let.
So I just want to give you some background in terms of why that's part of the party nuisance ordinance, because of the fact that the landlords could be held liable for a second violation once they had notice of the first. And so we put that language in there to give them an opportunity if they had made attempts to get rid of the tenants that were in there that were causing the problem, or became a part of crime-free multi-housing, or took steps, to fix the issue, and then it happened again, despite their efforts, then that would give them some ability to not be held accountable. In recognizing that, I don't know how that would fit this type of situation.
That's a good point, and I'll just say I'm very familiar with the crime-free, or with the nuisance party. I used to work in property management. I was in property management when that was passed, and was part of the enforcement arm of having to give those notices. So I remember that. I think what I'm looking at is the possibility for there to be either putting in that they get a warning first before a violation, or the ability to not be held liable for, if they get a complaint and it's one person that was outside screaming their heads off, and they can show, I tried to shut this down, they were being belligerent, that being the opportunity for them to possibly petition something like that. But I leave that in your capable hands. I know you know this much better than I do. I don't know about interest in adding a fourth violation. That would be something for a future conversation. Excuse me. I think I would look at there being same or similar penalties for businesses and individuals. Yes, I think that's an important addition in terms of failure to provide truthful name, date of birth, and address. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you. I have a couple of clarifying things. One, when I talked about housing being added to downtown, I guess I'm talking about the downtown vision, and it does call for housing opportunities north of the tracks. And there are several businesses that have music outside and rely on that opportunity to have that to thrive and to keep their doors open. So that's what I was talking about there. I did go on to the yoga studio's website. I actually do yoga there, and I've talked to Melissa about this issue, and we'll reach out to her again. I don't see any changes, and maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see changes in her class schedule, and there are evening classes there, and I've actually taken them, and I didn't even think that it was near the business we're talking about tonight. I didn't hear anything. It wasn't disruptive. maybe it was an off night, I'm not sure. So I wanted to bring that up. And then I'm in line with the Vice Mayor and Councilmember House on the hours and days and tweaking that a little bit. And what were my other things? The language in section B, number 2, I really like Councilmember House's modification to that, and I would like to see it go in that direction. Let's see. The first violation, I would like to see it a warning if possible. And I'm not sure how I feel about it being the same penalty for businesses and individuals. I guess I go back and forth on it. I feel like a business is very different than an individual, and I'm not sure the pros and cons on that. And I'm sorry if you've already stated it and I'm missing it. And then number 5, I'm a yes on that. Thank you, and thanks for all the information and the healthy dialogue tonight.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I think that all of us have to, whoever is involved with the negotiation, if it's not happening in your neighborhood, then you have to try and put yourself in the space where it is happening. So you have to think about it like that. It's hard for me because I live in Ponderosa Trails and I don't have that issue and I don't have a baby that's trying to sleep. So I have to try and wrap my head around those days when I did. And if you can put yourself in that situation, please do if you're part of this negotiation process, if there is one. I also think that there should be a warning, the first warning, and after that, no, because people don't need to be warned over and over again. Once I tell you something, you should be able to get it. We're all reasonable, intelligent people. We should figure it out. As far as the the business and the individual, I think that a warning for whoever, and then a fine. I'm not, in my mind, I would not treat the business person or business entity different than the person. Noise is noise and disruption is disruption, in my mind. And I think that I can probably stop there. And of course, name and birth and all of that stuff is a given. So I think that that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Council Members House and Sweet and Vice Mayor, but I also want to throw this out here, and I don't want to, I hope this does not come across as offending the residents, but I know I lived on LaRue for about a year, and when people were leaving the bar, and I was several blocks up, but just there was a lot of people that walk up up the hill. It would wake me up, and it was disturbing. So you know, I get it, but I was just kind of thinking on a bigger scale, because I know no compromise is going to really make the residents around that noise happy. You know, they would probably like no noise. You know, for those of us who are in neighborhoods that don't have noise, we can't really appreciate what they go through. So I just wanted to throw out there that also as a suggestion, as we go through a new ordinance, that I was thinking the sustainability grant for energy efficiencies, so putting in double pane windows and stuff might also help the residents, because no matter what we conclude tonight or when this is finalized, there's still going to be noise because there's still businesses downtown. So these are grants that they don't have to come out of pocket on, and they could really help the homeowners or the renters reduce that noise, whatever that noise level ends up being, is just going to improve their situation. And so I just wanted to put it out there, not discounting, you know, their concerns and their complaints about this, but just saying, you know, there's some things that we can offer through our sustainability grants that would help them just overall reduce. I know in these older homes, windows are just single pane usually, It's very noisy because they're not built the way they're built today. And so that might be just another added protection that they could think about and take advantage of those sustainability grants.
Thank you. Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, I'll just go down your list. Well, first of all, I want to say the bit about the yoga owner. The owner of the yoga establishment is the one that told me that their hours of operation were affected by the bar noise. I don't know if that's true, but that's what the owner of the establishment told me. As far as hours, when I had little kids, my kids are all grown now, but when I had little kids, they go to bed at like 8:30. So saying that we can have unlimited noise until 10 or 12 or something is unreasonable. And in effect, the way these hours are defined in the draft is if you don't fall within those certain hours, unlimited noise would be allowed, which is ridiculous. So I think it should be 24/7 for the residential, and that includes community commercial zoning. Central business, I think, yes, we can put some hours on that, similar to what's in the draft. Penalties, I'm fine with starting with a warning and then gradually increasing the penalties if the owners or the individuals continue to ignore what they've been charged with. And as far as providing your truthful name and date of birth, and if you're Irish or Scottish, then I'm fine with that.
Thank you all. I have a question, Marianne. When there's a call made about a party, if police show up and there's someone in the front yard who's screaming and being loud, and that is the noise, who is cited?
It can be that individual under the nuisance party ordinance as well as the person who is hosting the party.
So if someone were to leave a bar and be really noisy and someone calls the police and the police come and the person is still there, which is not always the case, still there being noisy, that person could be cited rather than the business.
Correct.
Okay. And is Matt still here? Does anyone remember what time he said that the music stops at Southside?
I had it set to 10, and he's told me he's changed it to 9. He said up there.
So 9 on weekdays?
On the patio.
To be clarified, in the building itself, I don't know that I have a time, but I know in the patio, when I owned it, I have time to set to 10. He stated tonight he had those set to 9.
Okay.
In the building, he said 2, Mayor.
Okay. And inside the building, he said 2 a.m.?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm with you all. This is such a difficult issue. We do want a vibrant downtown, and I know that when I lived close to downtown, I might have been one of these people who was really loud at night leaving an establishment. And for that, I'm sorry for whoever lived around there at the time. And at the same time, your home is your, your place of comfort and security, and not enough sleep, we all know, is extremely detrimental to a person. So I am in agreement with everything that was said here for the most part. I think I would stick with the hours that are currently listed. Definitely a warning before a penalty. And I really like the idea of utilizing the sustainability grants, and I'm wondering if there's anything else that we can do to help the homeowners or renters around that area to better be able to live with the noise that is automatically going to come whenever you're around, in commercial endeavors, not just bars, but just commercial endeavors. Do you feel like you have enough?
Yes, I think the direction has been very clear and very helpful. Just to kind of, and it goes back to something that Councilmember House said and what you just said, Mayor, I want to kind of let you know that, the warning, first instance, the second step would be a citation, but there's an option for the person who's issued the citation to request a hearing. So the citation isn't the determinative factor. They can decide to just pay the citation, or they can ask for a hearing for then the hearing officer, the judge, to determine did they actually violate. So it's not necessarily an automatic that they will be fined. They still would have the opportunity to present some of that kind of mitigation that Councilmember House you were talking about to a judge at a hearing as well. And then the judge would have to kind of determine if there's that violation. And, with the suggested language, I think that I could draft something based on what everybody said.
Thank you. And I just thought of something as you were talking. So the times that the music is turned off, if we're doing 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday and midnight, although I think that there was, I think that there were more people who said they'd like to see it an hour later, then that counts for music that is inside the building but is still disrupting a neighbor, correct?
Yes, Mayor, that would be correct.
Okay. All right. Any final thoughts or questions, council? All right. Thank you, staff, for all the work that you put into this, and thank you to everyone who has come forward, regardless of what position you were taking. I'd say this is one of the more difficult issues that we have dealt with, and we've dealt with some pretty big ones, but this one is a really difficult one. So next up, we have open call to the public, and I don't see anyone. All right, then we have informational items, 2 from Mayor, Council, and City Manager, and future agenda item requests. I'll start with Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, along with several others of you, just really enjoyed the Hogan blessing at Flag High. It was just really moving and emotional, and I felt very honored to be inside the Hogan and participate directly with the medicine woman and all the traditional steps that they take. It was just overwhelmingly beautiful. And then later that day, I had my first meeting with Laura Tarek from Adrian Fonte's office. They're launching, or they're starting, the America 250 celebration planning that'll be in 2026. And so it was really interesting to hear all the fun things they have planned for the different cities and stuff. And if anybody wants to get any of that information, I have her PowerPoint that she shared with me, but that was it.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Sorry, getting my mic off. This weekend, I attended the Victims Witness. In fact, I volunteered there. Heidi Robinson put out a call for volunteers, and I definitely went to help them out. But It was an amazing event, and they do a wonderful job in our community with victims. And so any opportunity that we get to support them, I would really encourage people to do that. October 3rd, we were talking about housing earlier. Housing is a healthcare issue. It is directly related to people's health. And so the Southside Community Association is doing its annual health fair. And I would encourage housing and sustainability and whoever else to come out and be a part of that fair, provide information to people, because I think it would be really, really helpful. And you know, my stance, boots on the ground is better than anything else. So please know that you have a standing invitation to come out and be a part of that. And then the last thing, I had a meeting with the Flagstaff Family Food Center and found out a lot of interesting things and found out a lot about their challenges. And so I'm hoping at some point in time, sooner than later, since we just did a food survey through the city, and Pinnacle, I believe, helped to work with the sustainability on that. I would hope that we might be able to get a presentation on the Family Food Center and how we might, or how we're supporting them or not, or how we might. So that's it for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I don't have much to report except to let everyone know that I'm away from council chambers today because I'm down in the Verde Valley at the Friends of the Verde River Conference. I've been on this meeting most of the time though, so I don't have much to report in terms of how that gathering is going. I look forward to getting out there and collaborating with a lot of these wonderful partners, working very hard to conserve our last perennial river in northern Arizona.
Thank you. Councilmember McCarthy.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Sweet.
Couple of quick things. I was also at the Hogan blessing, and what a treat. Really was a beautiful afternoon, and thank you for having me there. And tomorrow, the mayor and I are going to the, what was it called? Levitate Adventure Park.
Oh, yeah.
To talk to the owners about, you know, having a small business in Flagstaff. They're kind of new and learning the ropes. I look forward to that. There's a unveiling of the refurbished Route 66 mural tomorrow that I'll be attending at the Visitors Center. And I'm forgetting something. Oh, I was at the Victim Witness event over the weekend, and they are a wonderful group here in town, and it was great to be supportive. Thank you.
Councilmember House.
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
All right, I just have a couple things. Next week is the week without driving, and you can find out information at weekwithoutdriving.org. And on the website, it says, we created the Week Without Driving Challenge so that those who have the option to drive can learn firsthand about the barriers and challenges that non-drivers face and work with non-drivers to create more accessible communities for all. So I'm going to do my best to partake in Week Without Driving, and we'll see how that goes. Saturday, October 5th is the Disability Resources Fair at the High Country Conference Center, and I do hope that people will turn out. Like I said earlier, I'll be there with some folks from the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living. This is currently the Flagstaff Festival of Science Week, the best 10 days of the year. Thursday, I will be at the Star Party at Buffalo Park. They have an app that you can download, and you can put all of the events that you want to see on your calendar. And then on Sunday, the 29th, CATS, which is the Community Assistance Teams, they have a pop-up care village at Bushmaster Park from 11 to 3. And the CATS bus is one of our resilience hubs. And so if you have questions about their plans in terms of the Resilience Hub, that would be a good time to go and ask them. That's all that I have, City Manager.
Nothing from me, thank you.
All right, then we are adjourned.